I've not had this flavor of Jocko Fuel yet. Right. It is Mango Mayhem. This is passion fruit and bagel. Let's give it a go.
Oh, that's good.
It is good.
It's not overly sweet.
So that's my thing. Like if it's too sweet, I can't get near it.
And for health purposes, you look up what's healthy these days, and things are sold to you that say they're healthy, but they're not. I usually just stick to the smallest size sugar-free Red Bull and try to limit to one a day. But being a graveyard officer, that's hard. So.
Dude, so I get it because we've had like multiple like energy style pickup drinks in the gyms forever, and particularly here. I mean, we've carried a few different kinds. I mean, so people want, and either I sell them to them or they're going to walk across the street to the liquor store and they're going to buy them there. So I'm like, yeah, fuck, I might as well make a little bit of money on this. But then we've always been really good about having being very conscious, obviously, about what people are putting in their bodies. So for those that are, sweeteners are a big thing for me. And I know Jocko's using this monk fruit, which I've had in other drinks before, and it can be really overly sweet, but this is pretty good. And
I like the potassium. I cramp really bad a lot, even though I hydrate really well. So the potassium's good. The magnesium, all that stuff's going to help.
Yeah, I think,
only 10 calories.
Yeah. So I think it checks all the boxes for me. It's low calorie in general. It just gives me a little bit of that sweet and a lot of the stuff. So what's he doing with the caffeine? Is he doing
95? It looks like.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a hit, but not too much. No. Not going to pick you way up and then drop you off the edge at the end.
Yeah.
I'm into it. Yeah. I'll enjoy that for the rest of the time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, welcome back to the Iron Sights Podcast After Dark. I'm here with my good friend, Greg Simpson. Greg, welcome to the show, dude.
Thank you. It's a privilege and an honor. I really appreciate you having me out today.
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate you saying that. We can't go any further without like giving you and the new wife a big congratulations who's in studio today.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are just literally made time at the on your way back from the wedding / honeymoon and made time to stop in and talk to me today. So, man, I appreciate both of you for doing that. Thanks for coming in.
That's my number one fan right there. My biggest supporter for sure.
You got to have those in life, man.
Yeah, definitely.
The great ones always have one of those. Yeah. So, congratulations. Man, you've got an interesting story, but from how we got connected, this will kind of lead a little bit into the story. Mm-hmm. I met you a little bit over a year ago. We were at what was called California Range Day. The GCS guys were sort of leading the charge with the instruction that was going on that day. And whenever you go out to one of these events, for those people that don't know or unfamiliar, there's always going to be some type of medical service or medic on the range or on staff for the day. And for obvious reasons, but in this particular case, probably the thing that you were dealing with the most was like the hydration issue. Cause dude, it was fucking hot.
Miserable.
Dude, it was like 110 degrees out there. And I mean, I always know like I'm on the borderline of crossing over the edge when I look down at like noon and I'm already salty. Like the salt's just dried to me.
The white stains on the shirt.
It's all because I was, everybody knows me, knows I typically wear blacks, particularly on the range. My belt was salty. Like everything was just soaking wet, and then it wasn't. And now you're like, this is a problem. And man, I was drinking all day long, but it was hot as hell. But that's where we met you. You were the medic on staff for the day. So that leads a little bit into what you're doing.
Yeah, that was a great weekend. Proceeds went to a foundation. So, I volunteered my time, as I often do, for the law enforcement and first responder and military community. So I met a lot of great people, yourself, and a lot of people that weekend.
That's usually the best part of those weekends. I mean, there's always a learning, but there's the relationship building and the community growth aspect that I always really appreciate. And that's just, then it's like, it just continues. And so here we are today, a little over a year later, we finally got you in here, man. I want to talk a lot about your career, some of the things you've done, some of the things you've been involved in, because I know you can bring a ton of value to the listeners out there. From a lot of different angles. So we're going to hit a few things just to kind of prep people for it. Like I want to talk about your career in law enforcement and how being a medic fits into that, because you're doing a lot of things, but there's a lot of other things you do. And it's generally guys like you that always are like stretched because you do so many things you want to do them really well. So we'll get into some of those things. And I also want to talk about the mental health aspect of being an officer. in the game, and some of the things that you're doing to take care of yourself, but also contribute to taking care of others, because that's a big part of what you do. And then we have some stuff here on the table. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, Greg's brought a bunch of stuff that from like a trauma response or a first aid response perspective that we're going to talk through. Some really cool stuff here. And for some people, it might be like, dude, I've heard this stuff before. What are we talking about? We're talking about gauze. We're talking about tourniquets and whatever. But every time I listen to this type of thing, I always hear something new and some new nugget. So hoping people can take away some cool stuff there. And there's also actually a target here that we're going to talk about as well. So that kind of prefaces what we're going to get into.
Definitely.
Lots there. So let's just hear a little bit about you and kind of what you're doing now. I'll let you go through the resume and how you got to where you're at.
All right. Well, I would say for me, I come from a military background. My dad was 20 years Navy. So of course, out of high school, I tried to join the Army. Had some.
He was Navy. You decided to join the Army.
He was also a hose dragger. No offense to my firefighters, but Dad was firefighter, Navy, and I went cop and Army. So
gotcha.
Love you, Dad. But yeah. But I tried to join, had a knee injury. Fast forward, went to automotive school, puddled around for a long time, and decided I wanted to join. Tried to go active duty. My mom's already lost a son. My dad did 20 years Navy, so she was kind of against the whole military thing. So I decided to go to reserve. With the idea that I could always go active. Went in, took a random job thinking I was going to go active. So I ended up chemical, CBurn, which is like the weirdest thing to do because that's not really my style.
So talk about that. What is that?
It's CBurn. It's chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear specialist. It's a big fancy word for finding chemicals and cleaning them off. If I could just put it in a small little box. So
off of what? Anything. Yeah. So, the unit I was in detected. So we had a recon element. We did decontamination. So we had a decon element. And so we were like a range. And a lot of people don't realize that almost every unit, if they're set up right in the Army, has a CBurn guy, a 74 Delta. Okay. So are we talking about decontaminating people, equipment, what are we talking about?
You nailed it. We did all of it. We had decon lanes set up to decon vehicles and then get the people out of the vehicles and then decon them themselves. We had, like I said, the recon teams that would actually go out if there was potential element.
Got it.
And then go ahead and
figure it out. Like what's out there? What can we do? What can we not do?
We even had high-tech Humvees called BIDS units, which actually had little labs on the back of them. I was never in that unit, so I don't know much about it, but there's basically a big lab on the back of a Humvee that would go out and they could test stuff right there in the field. It's pretty cool.
So is this something, you choose, or is this something you got assigned to, or a little bit of both?
So a little bit of both for me, because you take the ASVAB, you test, and then they give you a list of what you're eligible for. And again, in my mind, I was going to go active duty. Like this is to make my mom happy. We were in Iraq and Afghanistan at the time. I'm going to go active duty. Like that's what I want to do. I wanted to be a medic. And it just, when I was in AIT, which is after boot camp, after basic training, you go and learn your job. Well, we pulled out of Iraq. We started drawing down in Afghanistan. I come home and I still have the letters saved on my laptop. I wrote multiple letters trying to get released from my unit to go active duty. And they're like, yeah, no, we're forcing people into the reserves. You're stuck here. So I'm like, I should have selected a different job if I knew I was going to get stuck with this for 6 years.
Given that you wanted to be deployed.
But everything happens for a reason, right? So
absolutely.
Fast forward, I have my son from another relationship. I realized that I love the brotherhood of the military. I've always been a gun guy. I've always been into shooting. And I like that pride of wearing the uniform and the brotherhood. Now in my teens, you would have never thought I would have been a cop. As a kid, I was like, I want to be a cop. Right. But in my teens, did hood rat stuff with my friends. And I was like, I'm never going to be a cop. Well, come back from all my training in the military. And I'm like, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
That's how I can make a difference. Not for my nation, but for my community locally. Right.
Okay. Got it. I get the mindset.
So that's where I got the interest in law enforcement. Started applying places, took a year and a half, 2 years. Back then it was still very hard. Now it's like, we can't find enough people. There aren't enough people signing up. But back then,
how old are you at this point?
I'm 30. Well, now I'm 36. At that time I was probably 24.
Okay.
So a little bit of life experience. Like I said, I went to mechanic school. I worked in the automotive field. I worked at a race shop here in the Bay Area. Shout out to them. They're no longer open, but GST Motorsports, they still support me. Big family. Worked for them, but the economy hit and couldn't hold the job in that industry. And that's when I was like, hey, I don't want to live my life and not have checked this box.
Yep.
Like military service is something I always needed to do and wanted to do.
Okay.
That was the time.
Okay. So you get out and you're applying at different agencies.
Yeah.
Did it matter where?
At that time, no. I mean, I was applying everywhere. Okay. But everywhere I kept getting on lists, hey, we're taking 5, you're 8.
Okay.
Hey, we're taking 10, you're 12. Oh, the list is good for a year. We'll call you. Not a single call.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're 12 or 1200. I mean, you're not on the list. They're just telling you what they need to.
If you're not getting taken, you're not getting taken.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. But I also had a kid at that point. Right. So there's always an option to put yourself through the academy. Some veterans use their GI Bill.
I know people who've done that.
For me, it wasn't an option. I needed to get paid. So I was looking for a very specific position to get paid while I'm in the academy, which is even harder to find. I mean, I had a kid to support. I had myself to support. I'm a grown man, right? I'm in my 20s. Some wouldn't look at it like that, but yes, you're a grown man. You're in your 20s. Yeah. No, definitely. My dad being Navy, he raised me to be a man. Yeah, and so
I get it.
I was trying to find this niche, right, of getting paid to go to the academy. So that was a struggle. I worked at Bank of America. I got hired through a veterans program. I went to one of those veteran fairs and got hired. Worst job ever. Oh,
I'm sure that was a lot of fun. My brother actually worked in a bank and he had some funny stories sometime, but he hated it. So he hated people after that. Like no.
I didn't hate people. I just hated the numbers, like, oh, you didn't make your numbers.
That's a problem if you're in the bank.
I'm off by 1, I got 12 and you needed 13. Like I'm killing myself out here for you guys, but it was a job. Again, I had to work, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a job and they knew I wanted to be a cop. They were very supportive. I had some good leaders there, right? It's all about leadership. I had good leaders that gave me time off to go to interviews. They gave me the time off to go to my military training. Shout out to Bank of America for that because they were very good with working with my drill time, giving me the time off, even paying me sometimes to go to drill. So that was great. And then all of a sudden, poof, 1 week shows up and I've got offers from SAC PD, SFPD, and CHP.
Wow.
And I'm like, how did this happen? Like, it was like a blessing and a curse because it's like, okay, now what do I do? Right. I only applied for CHP, to be honest, because one of my platoon sergeants in my Army Reserve unit was a sergeant and he was like, apply. So I did. And I was like, oh, no, I don't.
That's not what you want.
That's not what I want. And at the time, I didn't really want to commute to SF or
people that don't understand like CHP, like you're going a couple different places. Guaranteed. You're going to SAC.
Yep.
You're going to the Bay Area. You're going to work San Francisco, Oakland, Bay Area, right?
Yep.
Or you're going to Los Angeles.
You're usually going down to SoCal first, and then they can take you anywhere. And that's the problem.
And then you can wind up in the fucking Mojave Desert.
Right. And with a kid, I didn't want to, and being a separate household, I didn't want to uproot myself from my kid. Yep. So that was a big factor. And I didn't want to do a live-in academy. I had just gotten done with basic training and AIT for the Army.
You're over it.
Years. I was over it. I didn't want to live and have somebody banging on my door at 3 a.m. Like, been there, done that. Cool.
Right.
So I did a ride along with SAC PD and it was amazing. We got in pursuits. I mean, we were pulling people out at gunpoint. I met a good friend of mine that night that I actually lived with while I worked up there. And so I took that position. It was paid. SAC PD treated me very well. I got hurt halfway through my first academy, had to have a knee surgery. Very fortunate. They kept me, worked light duty for like a year, went back to my academy, killed it. But during that academy, my relationship kind of got estranged a little bit with my son's mother. And at the time, the plan was for her to move up there so I wouldn't be away from him. And it was her decision and I respect it, but it was, hey, we're going to stay down here. And I had already been for almost 2 years. Every Friday, I was packing my car, driving home, right to the Bay Area to see my kid.
So tough.
Driving back up on my Monday and basically living in a room I rented from another officer, that friend I mentioned, and then going back and forth.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
It was hard for my mental. It was hard on my son. He was a child, little baby. And so I made a very hard decision. I'm sure there's people that hate on me for leaving SAC PD at that time because, they did a lot for me and I appreciate them for that. And that's why I'm using their name in all of this because they are a great agency.
It's still a job though, man.
It is. And so I made a family decision and I moved back to the Bay Area and, but I wanted that same kind of fast paced running and gunning, chasing cars. So there's a few agencies in my area in the East Bay and I was looking at one, which now looking at it and where that agency is now, I'm kind of glad I didn't go there. But family friend did all the evidence tows for the other PD.
Okay.
I said, hey, don't go there. This is where you want to go.
Okay.
These are good people. 2 hours later, I'm not even kidding you, my phone rang and it was a captain.
Wow.
We spent maybe hour and a half, 2 hours on the phone. And he goes, that's your interview. I need you to come in next week and meet the hiring captain.
This is working out well.
It was wild. Cause mind you, at this point, like I'm in field training. I've graduated the academy. Like I'm working in SAC on the street at this point. And it was just all a whirlwind. And so I ended up at the agency I'm at now. Mm-hmm. I've been there going on 7 years now. Absolutely love it. It is a fast-paced, violent city, high crime. So, I mean, it's no Oakland by any means, but we get our shooters, we get our homicides, which for me as a medic is great because I get a lot of hands-on experience.
So let's time out for a second because now we're sort of caught up to where you are and what you're kind of doing. So we mentioned you're a medic. We mentioned obviously you're a cop, right? Mm-hmm. But you've also kind of articulated that you're always grinding and looking for the next thing, and you want to be. You put me in, coach. Like I want to be in. I want to be in it.
So I actually missed that little segment of how I got into this whole TAC med thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about the TAC med thing and kind of what do you do on a daily now?
Yeah. So what got me into the TAC med is working at the city. I loved the medical stuff. I ate it up. I had done combat lifesaver in the Army. And I loved it. So I got out of that 6 years as doing the chemical stuff, and they kept calling my phone the first couple of months. Hey, we need you back. Come back.
Okay.
So I said, I always want to be a combat medic. And again, right, I didn't want to not check that box. So I said, you give me that job and I'll come back. So they did. So I basically went back into the reserve after only being out a few months.
Okay.
Went to a transition school to transfer my MOS to a combat medic. It was a high intensity,
a fast paced.
Yeah. The normal ones, I think like 6 months, 7 months. Mm-hmm. I did it all in like 2.5.
So in comparison to like the civilian community, and obviously I would imagine like in the military, I have no idea that it's going to be more concentrated on things that traumas that you would see in the military, right? Things that you would have to deal with, gunshots, burns, ballistic trauma, just really gnarly shit on that end versus all the medical stuff that most medics deal with or paramedics deal on the outside.
I tell people all the time, like medical is true medicine, right? Like I get it. And I know how to do a majority of it, but it's not my bread and butter. It's not what I'm passionate about. It's the trauma medical. Yeah. And there's no better instructors in that field, in my opinion, than the Army, right? During times of war, we learn more about medicine and medical interventions during times of war. Unfortunately, it's one of the positives that we get out of war, right?
It's an interesting fact.
Learning about surgeries and how to stop bleeds, that comes from war. People don't realize that, but a lot of that is like, we don't cut people up, right? We're not the Germans back in the World War. Like we're not cutting people up.
We're not trying to figure it out.
Right. But we learn from our mistakes on the battlefield. And so the Army for me was like, hey, we'll give you your EMT in 13 days. Like we hit the ground, we did CPR, all the EMT stuff works.
Gives you that basic qual. And then it's like, here we go.
I got my national reg, EMT national reg. And that's a semester, I think, at college, if not 2. And
it's very interesting. I just looked into this because this is a box in my life that I've always actually wanted to tick.
Okay.
Was the EMT box. And I've been kind of looking at it for a couple of different reasons. And coming in today, I looked at it. So there's a couple of different ways that I found that you can get through this thing. And again, I'm not an expert. This is my brief research, but there are like third parties that will teach it, right? Like you can go through like like sort of an academy. There's also like kind of like your national university type places. Right. And then your city colleges, like we have one that's really a hop, skip, and a jump that has a well-known EMT program that's just around the corner from us. And you can do it like weeknights and weekends, or you can do it just weekends, or you can do the accelerated class, which is like, I think it's like 6 weeks, but it's 5 days a week for 8 hours a day. And so in terms of how long it takes, it can take you, anywhere from like a month to 3 months, maybe a little bit longer, maybe as much as 16 versus like, that's an EMT versus to where you can take the test and become actually registered and certified. And then there's the paramedic thing, which is a completely different deal, which can take, closer to a year.
Yeah. A long time.
Yeah. Depending on, and I think that's like 12 to 14, maybe as many as 16 months, depending on where you're going and
which
how you're handling
what's crazy with medics in the Army. We get our EMT cert. So like I said, we took that class for 13 days and took the national registry test at the end of it. It was staying up till 2, 3 in the morning every night, waking up for chow at 5 a.m. and doing it all
right
over
back
again.
at it. Yeah. Super concentrated.
We learned paramedic skills. You know, I know how to start an IV. Right. That's a paramedic skill in the state of California. I can push meds in the Army. Can't do that here. I can do trachs in the Army. Can't do that here. So it's crazy because paramedic skills, but I can't do that here. So
the California's a little weird that way, just with the liability stuff and whatever else. I think it hurts us. I really do. But you know, for whatever reasons, it is the way it is. But the point here is like you got a ton of training in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And then you're able to somehow leverage this to take it back into your quote unquote civilian life, right? Because when you're not wearing the badge, you're a civilian. We're all civilians, right?
Yeah,
you're in the military.
That was my whole plan, right? It's like you said, it's hard. You can do these weekends, you can do these 5 days. There's all these different ways you can get it. But for me, I live my life on a Google Calendar. Like we're here because we're tail ending my wedding, right? I'm always busy. So I said, how am I going to accomplish this? Well, if I go to the military, I'm on military orders, work has to let me go. Right. So I'm going to basically force myself to do it in a short time and get it over with. Right.
Versus like doing the weekends and nighttime class thing that I just mentioned.
Right. Cause I can do the local community college by my house too. Right. So I jump on that, come home. Now that I have my national, I apply for my California by basically filling out an application and paying a fee.
Yeah. Right.
So now
you're more than qualified here.
So now I become a post. For those that don't know, is the police officer standard of training is all the certifications you need in the police world. So now I become a post first aid CPR AD instructor for my agency. And now we start talking TAC medic. A lot of teams use local ambulances, tactical teams, but they're not armed. Our team uses a TAC med that's a sworn officer because it allows you to have a firearm.
So, all right. So you're an officer on the street.
Yep. Patrol.
You're a medic now, a qualified medic in the Army Reserves.
Correct.
Right. You did this through the reserves after prior service. Then you come back. Now you're an EMT by the state of California and you're still an officer on the street. And now we're talking about the world of being a TAC medic. So TAC being short for tactical medic, correct?
Tactical medicine.
So this would sort of, again, go back to like, well, you could kind of surmise what tactical medicine is versus, again, being a paramedic on the streets of San Jose and getting any number of calls. And in this case, you just mentioned, because I've actually trained with guys on the range before that are TAC medics, but they are not in the world of law enforcement. They were firefighters or even like corrections officers or something like that. And then they're working with local departments. If something goes down, active shooter, there's some type of a situation.
Right. They normally refer to as like teams, it's tactical EMS basically, you know,
so they have to go in with, so you're going to go into a situation with a medic that can both respond to whatever may happen to the officers, God forbid, or whatever's maybe happening to a victim or whatever's maybe happening to the perpetrator.
Right. So if you think about it, like your normal EMS, they're strictly cold zone, right? They're going to be way outside that danger area and they're going to stay in that cold zone. Okay. Then you got your TIMS guys, which are unarmed, but generally they'll have like ballistic armor, maybe helmets, a lot more advanced training. They'll usually cross train with us and we still utilize them. Shout out to our local TIMS guys because they come out to all our call outs too. But they're more willing to go just a little bit further than that. So maybe slightly into the warm zone, right?
Okay.
But then there's that next step, right? You got like the cold, the warm, and the hot zone, right? With a tactical medic that's armed, such as myself, I'm right there. So when it happens, there's no delay, whether it's an officer or whether it's a suspect. If it's a suspect, as soon as we know it's code 4, right? It's all good. I'm going to start going to work. If it's one of us, I'm going to drag him into the last room we cleared and I'm going to put somebody on the door and I'm going to go to work. Where the TIMS guys, if they can't get down that hallway to get to that officer, well, you got basic, whatever your officers have been trained to. And that level is it's up and down.
So not every department has officers that are TAC medics on staff.
No. In fact, a lot of departments use just those TIMS guys or teams, depending on how you're going to pronounce it, but they just utilize that. They don't actually have a sworn officer on their SWAT team that as a tactical medic.
So let's go. So you just mentioned that term SWAT team. So let's talk about the SWAT stuff. So again, like I'm just thinking about it, like if we have a SWAT team, feels like we should be, I'm just saying the collective we, feels like we should be covering all bases here. Like bad shit happens. That's why the SWAT team shows up.
Correct.
So
we don't show up to your, noise complaint.
Right. So you work strictly with SWAT then? And then as a street officer, how does it work?
So I'm still a smaller agency. So a lot of potential at my agency, which is great. But it's all ancillary duties. So I am patrol officer Monday through Thursday. I work nights. I'm a graveyard dog. I love it. I'm a night owl by nature. So I do my normal patrol. We have SWAT training once a month. Usually I get a couple hours of sleep because it's the next day, or I don't sleep at all. But we go and we train once a month, and that's a wide variety of boxes we have to check throughout the year. And then other than that, it's just a call out basis. So we have set call outs. Sometimes, we serve search warrants, high risk search warrants. Normally homicide, armed robbery suspects, things like that. But we are subject to call out. We've had numerous call outs in my time on the team where you get that call in the middle of the night or middle of the day and you got to hustle in.
So let's talk about that. I mean, how often does that happen on like a weekly, monthly basis where you're going code 3 somewhere knowing that you're going to have to completely suit up and get into it?
It really depends on the year, but we're a busy agency. So, I mean, we just had 2 or 3 call outs in the last month or 2.
Wow.
Like planned ones, going after bad guys and knocking on their door. We like to call it the early morning wake up.
Yeah. I call it door kicking, but it's whatever.
Yeah. That early morning wake up, when that flashbang goes off, you wake up real quick.
Morning.
Yeah. So, but we get a few of those, but the call outs that we weren't prepared for, right? Like the call ins, as we would say, that's just whatever the world brings us. Our patrol officers do a great job de-escalating and working through situations. So there's a lot of times where we get that text like, hey, we're getting wound up. And then like an hour later, as we're all getting right, we're all good.
We're fine.
Right. So if it gets to the point where it started as a patrol car call and we get out there, it's usually hours later.
Okay.
But we get quite a few of those a year.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm fortunate to work at an agency that stays busy.
What about interagency work? I mean, and when I say interagency, maybe what I mean, it's interagency. So working with other local cities or municipalities that may have SWAT teams, maybe they don't have SWAT teams.
Yeah. So generally the general rule is like, if you go to somebody else's city and they have a team, you offer it to their team. And if their team wants it, they take it, and then your detectives just come and clean it up. Or maybe you do it together. Or a lot of times if it's something serious, these agencies don't want to get involved in a shooting based on your case, because now it mumbles it all up.
Sure.
So they'll pass on it, especially if it's high risk, which pretty much everything we're doing is high risk, and they'll let the agency that's coming into town handle it. But we get asked to do aid in our town. SFPD comes out. The Fetty boys, the alphabet boys come into town. Sometimes we'll help them out. We just helped out an agency, Richmond. We helped them out recently, multi-agency thing, and we went out there and helped them out just because a team's only so big. So if you got to hit numerous places, your buddies sometimes tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we need some help. And you don't say no, right? Like you go and you take your team, and maybe there's another team and another team. And, you see the homies and you're like, hey, what's up? 4 a.m, like, hey, how's it going?
So the whole concept of team, usually when we're talking about like spec ops stuff, which is effectively what you're doing, right? For the department.
To a very small degree.
But there's something specific going down. We need a group of specialized operators, if you will, to go in there and handle this particular situation. And then within that team, there are people with very specific skill sets. And obviously you're bringing the one we've already talked about. How often do you find yourself, whether it's on, operating through the SWAT umbrella or just out on the street, applying the skill set and administering the skill set that you have as a medic?
Honestly, pretty often. I mean, several times a year. We had a shooting not too long ago and a lady got all shot up. Luckily, mostly just extremities, but, got there. It was like third, fourth on scene, but, they know, hey, when Sims gets there, he's going to take over as far as medical. And, get the clothes off, get her trauma naked so we can see what's going on. Applied some tourniquets and she lived. So, but we applied 3 tourniquets to her, wrapped some hands. So, and that was just recently. Had a OIS on our team recently where the shooter was in between my legs and the guy was shot. and I was right on top of them.
Whoa, time out. That's intense. Okay, so hold on. So we had this lady get shot up. This is some type of, it's like a drive-by type thing?
Yeah, it was basically, don't know if she was targeted or what, but yeah,
She's
basically.
In the wrong place, wrong time.
Wrong place, wrong time, and got shot up.
Okay.
Got shot.
And, you know, they're sending in the police because you don't want the whatever American ambulance rolling up into an active crime scene or an active shooting area. Right. So she's lucky that you were there. Right. Maybe.
Well, and my partners, you know, I take a lot of pride in that. My agency does a lot more than I see other agencies do when it comes to medical. And I hope that's in part to my annual, you know, biannual, whatever it is, training that we get maybe once a year, twice a year.
People feeling confident to get in there.
People feeling confident, like, hey, like I've seen this, I've been told what to do, and they do it. Yeah, they don't stand by. I hear all the times from the other crews, like, hey, I applied a tourniquet last week, dude. You'd be proud. Go watch my video, you know, because we all wear body cameras. So I'll go watch the video. I'm like, hey,
that's awesome.
Hey man, you killed it. And they're like, yeah, dude, like everything you said.
That's awesome.
That feels good for me as like an instructor. That's what feels good, is when people come to me and they're excited that they did the right thing and they knew how to do the right thing.
This is a common thing. Like I hear this a lot, like just in the training aspect of, I never would have done that had I not gone through that training with you 6 months ago, or I never would have known how to respond. I probably would have froze had you not had that conversation with me and walked me through, and effectively, the term been used on the podcast a few times, is downloaded that software in order for me to deal with it. And then in this case, it's taking it a few steps further, and now you're downloading hardware and you're putting it in their hands and teaching them how to use it. So you have this practical application of it all. But let's go back to the suspects between your legs. You didn't say male. You said it was a female before, but suspects between your legs and get shot while you're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you walk us through this? Because this sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, it's just, I did my time as the TAC medic for a little bit. And then obviously I wanted to be an operator on the team, right? I don't want to just be stuck in the up armored all the time. So I eventually applied to be an operator. So I do both now. So now at this point now I'm in the mix, right? I'm in the stacks, and I won't go too far into it because it was a more recent thing. But the short version is that, you know, this person presented a deadly threat, and that was addressed, and it's on the internet. All the OIS videos have to be released. So I'm not saying anything that isn't in the video
already out there, right?
But yeah, we're using the threshold of a door for cover. I'm high, he's low, and I'm less lethal, he's lethal. And, you know, the threat presented itself, and he did what he had to do, and I'm happy he did. So neither one of us got hurt, but because now he's right there in front of me. Again, we're talking about that like hot warm zone thing going on now. It's rapidly changing. Let me just say this. We were somewhere in a building where it took EMS quite a while just to get to us. Okay. But instead, I was able to then just start rendering aid, literally rendering aid as we're dragging them to an elevator to get them to EMS. I do a handoff, and there is no delay in medical care. From the time it happened, maybe 10, 15 seconds, right? For medical care to begin. And then it never ceased until that person got to the hospital. And that's the advantage of that armed TAC med, right? That armed sworn police officer on your team, is there's no delay, and at a higher level, right? Because not downgrading, you know, teams that do TECC or TCCC training, I'm all for it. Like, I'm going to start teaching an LEO class. It's an 8-hour through an AMT. It's medical directive certified. It gets you a cert, and I'm going to start offering that to all the local teams in my area to get them all dialed in, because that's just a step below EMT. I mean, as far as trauma, it's basic stuff. You just got to be taught it.
Yeah. So the CECC stuff, can you compare and contrast? Because I've been through some of that myself. I'll call it like accelerated. I don't want to, you know, overstate my level of knowledge or whatever, but
the thing I see a lot, the thing I see a lot with the difference between TCCC and TECC is one is more military based and one's more civilian based. So there's some slight differences in there that you're going to learn or get taught. Right. But I see a lot of people teaching, and it's no knock to anybody, but a true TCC or TCCC, it takes about 2 days if you're following the curriculum.
It's intensive.
And if you're under medical directive, and a lot of people teach classes, and I'm all for that. The more people, like we've talked about it before, like I'm not a proponent, like screw that guy because he's doing the same thing as me. Is that guy's teaching the right thing?
Right.
I want people to get as many tools in their toolbox as they can. Go see him, go see me, go get all the training you can, right? But a lot of people are teaching stuff and it's like not the curriculum and it's not under medical directive. And in this day and age, especially in California, I don't want you to do something and then be in a civil courtroom and being like, Greg Simpson told me
trying to save somebody's life.
Right. Yeah. And then now they come to me and go, well, who are you? Because I'm no doctor, right? But if I'm teaching you a class and it's under medical directive, now
this is the curriculum. This is what we taught.
Now when they come to me, I just point the finger at the doctor. Like, hey, this doctor signed off on this class and this is the coursework. Here's his roster. Here's his cert. Ask him. This is what he told me I could teach. This is why I taught it. And this is how I taught it. But it was all signed off by a doctor. And to me, that's a huge difference in this day and age, as far as just going out, Stop the Bleed's great. You can sign up to be an instructor pretty easily online and it is good. I know some great guys out there that teach Stop the Bleed and go for it. That's a great foundation to start. But again, a lot of times you're not working under medical directive and stuff like that. So having that basically safety net where if it does get dirty in California and you're in a civil courtroom or in a criminal courtroom, you can say Greg Simpson taught it and I can say Dr. So-and-so signed it off.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's so crazy that we live in that world here
and we have to. I wish I could just go out and just teach, but I would rather do it the right way.
I agree with you.
People don't realize when
playing the game is part of the game, man. I mean, you got to know what the rules are and what it exposes people to, and obviously you and the liability. You have to, and it is what it is. So,
and to put it into perspective for the listeners that don't know, when AMR or your ambulance shows up and you have an EMT or a paramedic, they're working under medical directive. When they go and they're on the phone and they're not transporting right away, and you're like, what are they doing? They're on the phone.
They're talking to a doctor.
They're talking to a doctor or to a doctor through a nurse, right? And this is what I've got. What hospital do you want me to go to? What do you want me to give them? Can I give them this medicine? And a doctor signing off on it. So that way, if it gets screwed up, it falls back on a doctor. So when I think of my medical training and when I want to train the general public and other officers, I want that for them too.
So you've talked about like why it's good. Is there any point where that's not great? Like where it delays the process, where it convolutes things, where people don't get the care that they need or should have? Is there a side to this?
I mean, there's skills that I've learned in the military that if I did it, like if you went down and you had burns or you had some sort of, let's just say I needed a trachea, for instance, right? Tracheotomy, right? And cut you open, get you an airway right below your Adam's apple, right? If I do that to you and you're my boy, hopefully you're not going to sue me, but technically that's outside of my EMT
way outside set. Of the scope.
Oh yeah. I'm going to be sitting in a courtroom.
But if you were on the battlefield.
Oh, all day.
Right.
All day. Same thing with starting a line. I deal with, you talk about dehydration on the range. I deal with it with my own guys. I've had guys that are dizzy and I'm like having to take them back to the station, get cold wraps on them, get them some hydration other than just water. And, if I could just hit them with an IV bag, some lactator.
Fix this problem right now.
1,000 liter, thousands of lactator ringers, straight in. It's got all the good stuff in it. It's not just saline you're putting in them. It's like, where I did my EMT training was, or my combat medic was back in Missouri, and it was hot every day.
Hot and humid, yeah.
Luckily, we were hitting each other with bags every day because we had to practice IVs. I mean, I was bruised up because we're sticking each other so much. But
interesting.
I got to experience how well that helps with dehydration, and I've pleaded like medical directors, like, I'm not going to push meds, but I know the contradictions and the indicators of dehydration and giving an IV for that. I won't, feed them 5 bags and, potentially get myself into a bad situation, but I get told no.
Yeah. It's black and white, right?
It's not an EMT skill. Sorry. So that's like one instance where I could do better for my team. I could do better for other people, but I can't do it. And I won't do it because again, we live in California.
It puts everybody at risk too. I mean, it's not just, it's bigger than you, right? There's a department
extremely,
there. Yeah. There's a lot of things going on. Wow, man. So you just mentioned two shooting events and you were involved very directly in an officer involved shooting.
Yes.
In just 7 years.
I've been on scene, first or second on scene to multiple homicides with the victim down. First or second on scene to multiple officer involved shootings or on scene. I had an officer involved shooting last year. Again, it's part of the job, but working in a high crime, violent city, you're more likely to come across it. Good and bad, right? Bad for the mental game, but good for the experience game. It gives me a good opportunity to test my skill sets and keep them sharp.
Well, that's why you do it, right?
Yeah.
That's why you train and train and train.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that one?
Yeah, that one's all closed up. That one's done. I had my final court. My county does a coroner's inquest, which is weird. Like kind of is like a final on this day you did okay kind of thing. So I had that a couple months ago. So yeah, it's on the internet too. But basically typical DV call. We get called to DV, the reporting party stating that her husband or son's father is at the door trying to kick in the door with a gun. And, you know, these days everyone says somebody has a gun. And to be honest with you,
it gets you guys there faster.
It does. Mm-hmm. But in fairness, everybody is carrying a gun these days. We've quadrupled the guns pulling off the street this year. My department has done a killer job. There's some go-getters at my department. They've done a killer job this year getting guns off the street. But now we got a second reporting party. And she's saying, hey, my neighbor, there's some guy with a gun trying to kick in the door.
All right. So
now it's like, okay, this is legit, right? So we get there and we're a couple officers deep, and he's on the staircase at the bottom of the staircase, and she's got an upstairs apartment. So my partner tries to talk to him a little bit. My sergeant just happened to be there, which they generally show up later because they're coming from somewhere else, and a couple other officers. And this guy starts beelining up the stairs. He's got his hands in his pockets. He's not really talking to us, but we know that's her apartment, and we know he's possibly armed. So of course we follow up the staircase. As we're coming up the staircase.
This is a bad situation.
It is.
You guys are at the bottom. He's at the top.
Well, staircases and hallways, right? Like CQB 101. That's like where you don't want to be, right? Staircases on certain calls still to this day. I'm like, here we go. Staircase.
And this isn't with your team. This is with the guys.
This is on patrol. This is like my second call of the night. Cleared briefing, went to a 5150 and actually cleared that call very quickly to go to this one. So at this point, he's backtracking up the stairs. He kind of turns, and I'm just behind the primary shooting officer and officer with less lethal. And I see him drawing.
So you're number 3 guy.
The number 3 guy, but we're kind of staggered. So I'm like number 2-ish, like where me and number 2 are like shoulder to shoulder.
Okay.
And I actually see the gun start to come out. And if you watch my video, they don't depict it in the video my department put out. But if you pause it, you can see the gun on my body camera. I saw it.
Oh, what you're saying is they didn't do the edit, but they
didn't do the circle. They did it for the primary shooting officer. But if you look at mine, you can see the gun.
I got you. From different camera angles.
Correct.
I'm with you. Okay.
They showed my camera angle, but they didn't like slow it down and depict like circle the gun.
You saw, yeah.
So I start to say something. I forget what I was going to say, but you hear me start to talk and then shots ring out. And it's
that fast.
That fast. I kind of lost sight of some people as they're moving around because it's like a, what do I call it? Like a platform.
Like a mezzanine up top.
Yeah, there's apartments left and right. There's, I think, 4 apartments total, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. So I hear the shots, I hear boom. And what I thought was boom, boom, boom. So my mind, it's crazy how fast your brain processes stuff, because my brain instantly went to this dude shot at my partner, who is like my little brother, right? I've been with him through thick and thin. Mind you, his wife is the dispatcher.
Wow. It's a tight family.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking this dude just shot at my partner and he shot back. Boom, boom.
Right. So the first boom was coming from the suspect, and the second
that's what my brain picked up. What actually happened is my partner shot all 3 shots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this guy was high as a kite. He had everything in his system, right? So I think that had to deal with the fact that he was trying to shoot at us, but probably couldn't due to his mental.
Because he got it out. He got it out.
But my partner shot. And so I think we were going upstairs. So I don't remember if I kind of flinched or if I slipped on a stair.
Like in mid-step somewhere.
There's a surveillance camera from the apartment complex, and you can see me kind of drop down 1 step as the shots ring out. But my mind, I'm like, go get him, right? Like, that's my boy. Like, I'm not going to leave him up there. So I start going up the stairs, and as I'm going up it, he goes flat on the stairs.
The suspect or your partner?
My partner.
Oh, boy.
So we talked about that hallway, right? That hallway staircase, CQB is the worst place to be, right?
Yeah, well, you're on no man's land right now.
Kudos to my partner. He was smart enough that the only place I can get cover
is down.
Well, he had a malfunction. I didn't know that. He had a malfunction off after his 3rd shot. So he smartly lays down on the staircase to try to fix it. But in my mind, watching him out of the corner of my eye,
I thought he was dead.
I thought he was shot.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, holy crap, this is it. This is every cop's worst nightmare. Mm-hmm. My friend and partner is shot. And I'll try not to get choked up right now, but I still tell him to this day, every time I think about it, I relive that feeling of that he was shot. you know?
I can't believe this.
That is like, there's no other way to put it. It's a shitty feeling. It is the worst, right? So at this point, I still can't really see the suspect because I was also using the staircase to my advantage, right?
The best you can, yeah.
I start slowly cresting it up stair by stair. And in my mind, I was two-handed. I mean, like, right? Like you do at the range, right? Two-handed, everything's
Side
there.
Picture,
everything was perfect, right? Well, somebody later, one of my buddies, the next morning after everything goes down, he goes, dude, that was one-handed on a staircase, dude. And you hit him. And I'm like, what? No, dude, I had two hands on the gun. And he's like, no, dude, you had one hand on the gun.
Wow, this is fascinating to me that, I mean, this is because, I mean, what are we talking about? It's just
seconds.
5 seconds.
And what's a trip is there's so much that I remember like clear as day and stuff that's like, oh yeah, that did happen, you know? And so what ended up happening is because I'm going up the stairs, I felt unbalanced and I grabbed the handrail with my left hand.
Which left you one-handed.
It left me one-handed. And as I crest up, he's still moving. And again, clear as day, like my mind just goes right onto the barrel and the gun's pointed at me. I can clearly see his fingers inside the trigger guard. I see building and a little backdrop. There's like a sliver of no building. And I'm like,
here we go.
He's moving. It's pointing at me. Threat. Boom, boom. Actually, it was pretty precise because I knew I was shooting one-handed. And so I shot one and I'm pretty sure that one, I'd have to go back and look at all that, but I'm pretty sure that one skipped the deck of the platform there and it missed. And then my second one went up into his leg, like right up in the guts where you want to get everything. But one of my partner shots, believe it or not, actually went through and clipped his heart. So he was bleeding out internally already. So,
but he's still going.
He was still going,
which is an important thing. I think we can talk about that later. Actually,
he kept going. And so at that point, and this is all happening rapidly. My partner says malfunction. He's going to get out of there. So I say go. We basically do a quick bound. He goes down. I cover. The dude's like basically stopping to move, but he's still got the gun pointed at us. I go into OODA loop. The only moment of this whole thing that I wish I didn't do is I just totally went into OODA loop mood going down the stairs because I was afraid for the rest of my officers. And I just kept repeating, he's still got the gun pointed at us. He's still, because I didn't want anybody else to rush up there.
To walk into the emotion.
And the other thing was when we got down there, so now I'm pointing, I'm covering right on the staircase and we're starting to start communication with him and all that. But my partner, he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Not like bad, but he's like trying to work, right? He's like trying to get this
trying to clear his gun.
Well, he clears his gun.
Okay.
Then he tries to get the shield out of the sergeant's car. Like he's doing what he's trained to do. Right?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But with my combat medic training, and I've seen it, people get hit and don't know they're hit.
Right.
Like when it's fight or flight and you're fighting, you're going to fight. And if it's not like life altering, you could go quite a time in a fight and realize, oh, I'm hit somewhere like not important. Like I'm not bleeding out arterially, but I'm hit.
And this goes back to you thinking he got shot once and then put two on this guy.
Correct. Right?
So because you don't know.
This is still where my mind's at. Right. So I start hollering at other officers, like stop him in his tracks, stand him still,
check him,
and top to bottom check him. Right. And so we check him. He's good. At that point, and it's crazy things you think about because this is all very fast. I think I even thought about this before I got somebody to check him, but I thought about doing a tack load, right? Training. Like, okay, yeah, right. I was in a gunfight. There's a lull in the gunfight. I'm going to tack load. And my brain went, no, dude, you fired twice. I run extended. So it's 19 plus 1. I'm like, you got 18 rounds, dude. Like,
you're good.
And so I think in my body camera, you even see me go like this to reach down on my exterior carrier to do a tack reload. And I'm like, no, like you're good. Right. So it's crazy what's processing and what your brain goes back to, right? Like what is your brain referred to?
Yeah. So they always say it defaults to your lowest level of training.
Yes. 100%.
Right? So man, I mean, that's intense. I mean, so we haven't even finished yet. So he goes back downstairs. He's looking for the shield. You're yelling, hey, stop that guy.
Yep.
Stop him. Let's make sure we check him out. Guy up top is now bleeding out because he's been hitting the heart, but you don't know that.
He's been hitting the heart by my partner, hitting the leg. It went up into some guts up in his inner thigh.
So, okay. So there was a third officer on the stairs. You guys have both kind of backed off.
Yeah.
Now.
So the third officer and the sergeant, as soon as shots ran out, they came down to get a position of advantage. Like I said, I was literally just going up there because I wasn't going to leave him. Like if I'm going down, he's going with me. Yeah. So at this point, things kind of calmed down a little bit. I'm trying to do communication. You talked about all the jobs I've done before SWAT. I was on the crisis negotiations team. Everyone knows I'm a talker, so that was a good position for me. But went to FBI school for that. For CNC.
Shit!
Yeah, it was a 40-hour FBI course for that. It was cool. So my sergeant comes over, great sergeant, right? And he comes over and he taps me, and he just tells me like, I forget what he whispers now, but something like CNT or I need you. Like he basically told me like, I need you to flip the switch. And like, I took a deep breath and like, you can tell in my voice, I went from like, oh shit, to, and like literally after that, he ends up the primary shooter, my partner, he gets sequestered, which is normally the case. Well, at this point, I'm knee deep in trying to negotiate with this guy. So kind of outside the norm. I spent like, I think the next 20 minutes negotiating with this guy because of my experience, right? I'm crisis intervention trained. I'm CNT trained as a negotiator.
Meanwhile, he's bleeding out.
So, well, we made attempts to go up the stairs, right? We went up the stairs and, you know, I'd said everything in the book, you know, I talk to this guy like he's my friend. That's the way I look at it when I'm negotiating, right? Like I'm talking to it like it's you, dude, like it's Scott, and I want Scott to get out of this and not get hurt. So I'm pleading with him like, hey dude, I'm a medic. I'll give you aid. We'll get you to our trauma 1 center. They save everybody. They're going to save your life. Just please don't do this. No one wants to hurt you. Everything. And I meant it. Like I honestly meant it. Like people say, oh, that's all talk. That's all. No, I meant it. I don't want to see this man die, and I don't want to have a hand in this man dying. Like I want him to live. And so did that for about 20 minutes. Finally, I get pulled away. They go to less lethal, get no reaction. And so they go in, they handcuff him, all that, search him, recover the gun. His finger was still in the trigger guard. So they had to pin him with the shield and be very careful getting that gun out. And then obviously at this point, paramedics have been just itching to get in there. So as soon as they go code 4 and it's all clear, they rush up there. He did not make it. And so at that point we just went into protocol, you know, get sequestered, which by the way, that is extremely stressful. Probably like the most stressful experience of my career.
Can't imagine, man.
I know I did right. I know I did what I had to do, but in this day and age, being a cop, shooting anybody is like, okay, am I going to be on the media? Am I going to, you know what I mean? Like, how is this going to be portrayed? Right?
Oh man. I'm just trying to process it all myself. And that's a pretty compelling story. And I'm just thinking about from start to finish, all the things you might hear, like as a civilian, about all the bad things that police officers have to deal with out there on a daily basis. And oftentimes we don't even hear about it. So first off, it starts off as what to my knowledge is one of the most dangerous situations you guys can walk into, which is a domestic violence call. Yep. Right. Yep. So it starts there. Number 2, we have 2 witnesses that say the guy's got a gun. So that's obviously a big problem. Yeah. That's exacerbated by the dude's all jacked up on whatever he's jacked up on, right? From a narcotics perspective or whatever. And you don't know this. We have a staircase, we have a platform, we have hallways at the top, and ultimately there's shooting. So, and within that, you've got a malfunction of a weapon, right? And all the confusion that happens there. And then now stress on stress on stress on stress. Yeah. On top of all that, man. I mean, that is, you talk about how your brain sort of deals with all that in the moment. Was there a point where you kind of stepped back from all that after the negotiation, after he's been, you know, kind of scooped up and carted away and whatever, and you guys get sequestered? How long before it kind of hits you, and what does that feel like?
I think once I got sequestered, it hit me. You know, a different sergeant had showed up. Luckily, we had some specialty stuff going on that night, so there was more officers and an additional sergeant there that normally aren't there. So we had a lot of resources, and so I know this sergeant, and you know, we're like a family. So he knows me. He knows my now wife. So the first thing I said is call her, because I don't want her to get the call from somebody else. Because the word travels and people mean well, right? But I don't want her to get the call from
I can't imagine somebody, being on that, you know? Yeah.
So I said, call her, stand right in front of me and do it. I know I can't talk to her. He's like, put in the number, no hesitation, calls her, talks to her, lets her know what's going on. And I think that's where it hit me. I'm like, oh crap, this is her worst nightmare too. Like she's at home in bed and she's getting that phone call, right? So I think that's the first time it really hit me. We're making my wife cry over there, by the way. She's in the studio and she's over there crying. So I'm not going to look over there because then I'll cry. But she got that call. And I think that's when it really hit me like, oh man, like this is her worst nightmare too. People don't realize it's really hard being with a cop, a firefighter, any first responder. And so I think that's where it really hit me. But then I jumped right back into worry mode because now I got to go. I can't talk to anybody about it, right? When you're being sequestered, you can't talk to anybody about it. You can talk. I mean, we could talk about the football game on Sunday. We could talk about what we're going to do this weekend, but we can't talk about the event. And all you want to do, you just want to talk about it. Like, right. It's like this weight and you just want to, but you can't because
it's also your family, right?
Right. Well, I got to, at some point, one of the captains came in and he's like, hey, have you called your family? And I said, no. And he says, okay, here, call your family, because again, somebody always has to make sure you're not talking about the event. So called my mom again, woke her up in the middle of the night. Hey, mom. Hey, you don't sound right. She could hear in my voice. I'm okay.
Then you have to relive the whole thing all over again.
Oh, I relived it every second, even if I wasn't talking about it that night. So I tell her, hey, I'm fine, but I was involved. There was a shooting. I was a shooter. I am okay. And I'm going to be sequestered. It's going to be a long night and I'll call you on my way home tomorrow. It'll probably be in the morning. Cause mind you, this is like 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Right. I
already know I'm going to get out 7, 8 o'clock the next morning. So, it was hard, but it's just, like I said, you want to talk about it, right? That natural human emotion is to talk about it, right? Like good or bad, like you share things with other human beings, right? So that was really hard.
It's one of the few things we have as humans that separate us.
Right.
It's having those conversations.
And you want somebody to tell you, hey,
it's okay.
You're okay. You did the right thing. Especially like your senior officers or people you look up to, you see them walking around because they're investigating this, right? Like one of the detectives that came to investigate mine is one of my good friends. I was in his wedding. He was just in my wedding and I'm looking at him and I'm looking at my other buddy who we hang out outside of work and I'm looking at them and they're looking at me and they know I'm tripping, right? Like
so that's the whole thing here. Like, so now you're being processed and you're having to process and now other people are having to process that too. They're having to process. So you're looking at them having these conversations and man, if I'm having that conversation with you, I don't care how well I know you, I'm walking on eggshells right now. Yeah. Dude, is Greg okay?
But you can't,
because I know I'm not really okay.
Yeah. You can say like, I'm okay. Right. But it's like, you want more than that. You want to tell them what happened and then be like, yeah, dude, you did the right thing.
But you can't.
So that was hard. And of course, they process you. It's funny you said the word process because the other hard thing for me in all this is they photograph you, right? And so they photographed me as I was, right? Left, right, turn around. And I remember getting really upset because I felt like a criminal. Like I did something wrong.
Through mugshots.
Oh, dude, they took my gun out. Of course, they count your rounds. They take pictures of your firearm. They take your firearm, and this
is not something you could prepare for.
No, not at all. And, my department does a really good job preparing us. So that's probably why I did so well with it, but it's still hard. Right. And I looked over we have a peer support team, looked over at one of my peer support people. And I look up to her. She's been in a department a long time. She does a lot of good stuff for our department. And I look over at her and she goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "No." She said, "Why?" I said, "I feel like a criminal right now. And I do not like I was getting angry. Like I was pissed off."
Seems very natural.
It was a range of emotions, man. There's times where I thought I was going to cry and I'm not a big crier. I thought I was going to cry. There was times where I thought, I was angry. There's times where I was scared. I'll be honest. I was scared. Like I said, am I going to end up in the news? How's this going to work out? But long story short, we finally were the last two to get interviewed. I'm the last one. I think I finished my interview at like 7:30 in the morning. So now I've been up all night, right? Nerves, stomach's turning, couldn't even eat kind of thing. And then I go home and I try to sleep and can't. I think we sat in bed until.
How could you? I mean, I guess I could see just falling face first onto the couch and
the problem is
being exhausted.
For me, I was past that point, right? So
you got adrenaline and cortisol running through you like crazy right now. So that's keeping you up.
Right. But some people do. And some people go back to a hotel room or something while they're being sequestered and they sleep before they get interviewed, But for me, I was anxious, so I wasn't going to sleep. So we talked till about, 11 in the morning or so. And I think I slept maybe a handful of hours that day. And then I started fielding calls. I wanted to reach out to the homies. I got a good tribe. I got a good village and they take care of me. So people were coming by the house. People were sending DoorDash gift cards. Our community is outstanding. And so I started fielding calls and just kind of trying to get normal. My department does a good job with mental health. So you automatically get a week, but me and my partner both ended up taking a second week just so that we had time to go talk to our department therapist, which they have. I mentioned the peer support. My department is very ahead of that. Luckily, a sergeant before my time, I got to work for him before he retired, but him and some other people put together our peer support team. Beth, I can't think of Beth's last name right now. But Beth has her office, here in the Bay Area. And if you're a cop listening to this and you probably know the name Beth, she's awesome. We go and see her. She's amazing.
So you just said something there that strikes me, and that is the try to get normal after having gone through what you went through, trying to get normal. I can't remember where I heard this. I can't remember, but I think it was a documentary on combat veterans that had come back and then were seeking help for mental and emotional help. And I think what the therapist was saying is this is your normal now. And now you need to figure out how to deal with what the new normal is. Yeah. It's never going to be the same ever again after having gone through what you've gone through. Right. So, you were just sort of talking about the process of seeing and getting some help and getting some people on your team and all of the things, like all of the people, right? Like, so the people that you work with, the family that's around you, right? Your wife, fiance at the time, but your wife, the counselors, right? And then there's a department that puts you in. There's a middle person for all this stuff, and they're taking a village or a team to do this. Is there a book? Like, how does that outlines how all this should work? Like, or is it just figuring it out as you go?
There is a book. I forget the exact name of it, and I should know. It's I'll get it to you, and you can link it in here or whatever. But it's basically surviving law enforcement. It's a white and red book. And if you're in law enforcement, you probably saw it at your academy, but it's not just for you. It's for your spouses and your family too.
Dude, I was actually being like, almost sarcastic in asking that question, but this literally is a thing.
Literally somebody wrote a book about how to survive a career in law enforcement. And then, like I said, luckily the stigma, right, with people like Greg and Jesse, my good friends over at the Overwatch, and all these other places, is the stigma around men's mental health is going away. And I think I told you, we've talked about before, I was like that dude that was like, I ain't ever going to a therapist. Like, nah, dude, that ain't me. Right. But that stigma's gone away and there's things in place. And I'm fortunate, right? Like, to those listening, I'm not a combat veteran, but our combat veterans, why they're so broken is they didn't get the opportunity I did, right? Like, I had a traumatic incident. I got like 2 weeks off of work to deal with it. You
have to go back to work the next day.
I went and talked to a therapist. Like, I got that time to process. These dudes don't get the time, right? They go right back out that night, or maybe they're still in it. You know what I mean? For that amount of time. And when your brain doesn't get that time to process,
you can't just put it in a box and put it on a shelf.
It's a part of me, but I'm good, right? Like, I mean that. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I got taken care of. I'm good, right? I go back to work, good, right? But I can only imagine if I had to relive that night after night for weeks, months on end, and not get the opportunity to deal with that. Like, to my veterans listening,
I get this.
I give them all the kudos. That's what I'm getting at, man. Because people don't give them enough respect, in my opinion. It's just not enough. There's never enough we can do for them. Ever. I hear this all the time too. And there's what happened there, but there's all the other things that may have happened previous to that we don't know about, And so the way I've kind of heard this described is like, you have a bucket, or you have, maybe you're a guy that's got a bucket and or a glass of trauma. That's your glass of trauma, or your glass of things that you've had to deal with, and it's half full, right? And you deal with another one, and at some point, there's a tipping point where that glass is over full, or this, there's the box, and the 5-pound box that you try to stuff 10 pounds of shit into, and it ends up overflowing. But you get the analogy. But what about the people that are coming into it already that have a full glass, and then you just dump a little bit onto it? So everybody's like threshold is a little bit different, or could be a little bit different. So, I hear what you're saying. Like, you feel good. But what about all the people that
maybe come into these situations, whether combat veterans or police officers, law enforcement, first responders, dispatchers, all of these types of people that have this accumulation over time outside of the job, right? And then come into the job. Not that they're not handling the job well, but this shit, this is why I was asking you. I mean, you just went through 3 very, very intense incidents. Obviously this last one being the most from what I can gather. And that piling on.
Yeah. I mean, that's hard, right? Because that's what changed me in my perspective towards mental health, is that I started this job a couple years in, couple little incidents. A buddy of mine got an OIS, officer involved shooting, and I was like first on scene. I had lost a baby on a call, right? And I was the only person on my crew that had a kid. Like, not even the sergeant had a kid. And so like, I'm the primary officer, so I'm stuck in this room with this infant who's dead as a parent. Like, that was hard, And so it's all these little things. And for me, it wasn't one big incident, because a lot of the quote unquote stuff people say was crazy in my career was more recent, right? But it was all these little incidences that were critical incidences, but maybe not like a shooting or anything, but they kept piling up in my box. And then that's when I was like, I hit a wall, right? And luckily I had a good friend. And he basically forced me into the therapist's office at like 2 a.m. and she came in and we sat down, and not a lot of people know this. So I'm letting secrets out here, but that's fine. Hopefully my friends support me and watch this, and then they'll know this story. But I got forced into her office and we talked for like 2 hours. I stayed the night at my friend's house, and I went and saw her for the next couple of weeks, and it changed my life. And it's because we need to talk about things,
right? And
that whole, like, I'm a warrior, and yeah, you can be a warrior and still acknowledge that you're a human being and have feelings. You know what I mean? And that really changed my stigma on mental health, And so these people coming in with those buckets, to get back to what we're talking about, already full, I think it's helping people realize that maybe they have some stuff in their bucket that they don't know. I remember specifically telling the therapist that I was talking to, like, it's just like sand in an hourglass, right? It's constantly going, and now it's just getting more and more full, right? But we talked about it before we started day 2, like life events. She comes in, the therapist, and she does things, and she gives you a packet and you fill it out and you check boxes for life events, right? Like, just divorced.
This ever happened? Yeah.
Well, just recently, like, it's like, I think it's in the last 3 months or 6 months. Has this happened? Check it. And if you check even one box, she's like, you should come see me. And the last time she did that, I checked like 6 boxes. Right. And she's like, oh, you need to come see me like right now. And we were just talking about, just in the last 3 weeks, I've had some family stuff going on that was traumatic to me. And unfortunately, my wife lost her dog of a long time. Her grandmother died right before our wedding.
You're ticking boxes.
Checking boxes, man. And you know what I said? I got to make an appointment. And that's what I did. I'm working on, my schedule is kind of crazy. So I actually need to reach out to her and figure out a time to get into my schedule again. But I need to go see her again.
Just having that resource, though.
Well, even just getting married is a box.
But also being aware that, like, there's these boxes, man, right. and they're filling up like real fast.
Some of these boxes you don't think about, like divorce is an easy one, right? Because that's like, stressful.
Yeah, you would think like death in the family, divorce. Those are very stressful.
Some of the things on this list are getting married, right? Like
moving, I'm sure has got to be on there. Like changing locations,
changing jobs, even getting promoted, right? Because now you got more responsibility and more stress. So those are like positive things, but
it fills the bucket.
Yeah. And that, I think that's where people need to realize, like, good things can fill your bucket too, and that's okay. But that's when you need to like realize, like, hey, I need to, and even it could be as simple as just going out with the boys, not drinking, not covering up with alcohol or drugs or anything, but just going out and talking to the boys or talking to your significant other. Like, good communication is huge. Like, I talked to her about my mental health, and,
these are things you learn in the process.
You do, but like every good trainer, right? It's because they've experienced something and they're trying to teach you so that way you're prepared for it when it happens, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the whole thing of a good instructor, right? Like, that's why these combat veterans come back and teach, because they've had experiences that we don't have. So we don't make the same mistakes.
They recognize that and they want to get back.
Right. And that's the thing, what all of us need to start doing with mental health is, if you have learned something, put it out there. Because I hope somebody's listening to what I'm saying right now. And if it's even just one person and they're like, I'm going to go talk to somebody, that's fantastic. Greg and Jesse's motto is one more is one less. Right. And that's the truth. I mean, I've had people I know, commit suicide, and if we can prevent one more, I'm all for it. So it's not easy coming up here and saying some of the stuff, but
I get it.
If it makes a difference, it makes a difference.
I can totally appreciate that. And that's trickled over. We're just talking about being a coach or being a trainer and the things that you're doing. I mean, now you have all this, there's this extra stuff that you can provide, but you've been doing this for a while. You've just been doing it in a different capacity. And I know you work with the Overwatch guys up there. We mentioned Jesse and Greg as good guys.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know I shouted them out a few times. I've known Greg for years, and that's a guy that I met doing firearms training.
Yeah, I'll give him September 24th. Overwatch Collective is doing a fundraiser to help provide funds for people in the first responder community. Get out there and get some help. And they also provide a platform or a forum to be able to find somebody maybe outside of the EDP type of thing.
If you're not fortunate,
enough to have the type of help and support that you have inside your particular agency and department now, and within your family and all the other things. As you said, it takes a village. If you don't have that and you just need somebody to talk to, they provide a great platform to maybe get connected with somebody that isn't necessarily a therapist, but has had those experiences or can help you find resources for you to make you feel more comfortable about it. So that you start talking about it. We start emptying that bucket out a little bit.
Definitely
start acknowledging it. But that
dinner is going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. Me and the wife will be there. I donated some individual first aid kits to be raffled off, and some of my trainer kits as well. There's going to be a cigar rolling bar. I mean, if you're a dude,
you had me at cigar rolling.
Yeah, if you're a dude's dude, there's going to be some there for you. They're giving away hunts. Yeah, they're giving away a staccato or the raffling office.
I know. I started seeing some of the stuff that's coming out of them. Like, I'm giving away some memberships and some coaching programs and things like that. I'm like, dude, I feel like there's got to be more I can do. Yeah. But you just mentioned the first aid kits and the training kits that you have. So let's talk about some of the stuff you brought today, because then I actually have some stuff that I want to ask you. Like I brought a few of the kits that I carry. Actually, why don't we start with that? Actually, like why don't I hand you a couple of my kits and maybe you can critique them, because I think it'll lend context to maybe what you have going on here. And we can talk about it. So hold on. So I got a couple things. So first thing I do is, like, this backpack basically goes everywhere with me. Like this is my work pack. Like it's constantly with me. It's got my life in it. Right. So, it's got my laptop I can run my business from. It has fluid for me to drink. It has food. It has, my ID, cash, all that stuff. It's also where I would carry a firearm if I wasn't carrying it on body. But I don't go anywhere without some type of an IFAK. So I actually have it kind of cut up into two spaces here for a reason. One, so on the top pocket here, I have some basics in the top. So I carry a TQ or tourniquet in the top, carry my shears and some Israeli gauze.
Awesome.
And then in the side, the reason I have it like this is because if I want to leave the backpack somewhere and I just want to throw it into my jacket pocket or something like that, I have like a pocket kit. I'll get out the other ones in a second. So we can go through that one. And then I brought two other kits that I carry. One is like an ankle kit, and I'll explain to you why I like it and why I don't like it. There's the pros and cons there. I'm hoping you can
I got plenty some light on that. I've tried those.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I also have, like, this would be a kit that I usually would have. This basically is what I have in my vehicle.
I was going to say that looks like a vehicle kit.
So I have every vehicle. I have three vehicles. I have three vehicles, and I have a kit like this in every vehicle. So I want to kind of go, maybe have you critique kind of my setup.
Well, just to start with your backpack, like if you want to hold that up again, like the fact that you have the medical is on top of your bag, and you've got this zipper for the people listening. It's just like a half moon zipper on top of his backpack, but it's on the very, very top of his backpack, which for starters, that's the best. Your medical equipment, hands down, first thing, it has to be readily available. Right? You don't want it in the bottom of your bag where you're digging it out, or you don't want to move it around where you don't know where it's at. You want to keep it in the same, you want to have a SOP, right? A standard operating procedure of where it is, what's in it, and that it's easily accessible and quickly accessible. So kudos to you. like right off the top for having it on the top of your bag, because that's killer right there. Like, not killer, that's actually the opposite. It's saving people, but you know what I mean? But the fact that you have that stuff up there, and I, you know, from here, I can see that you said you had the tourniquet. I can see right here, it's a CAT T, which is, I mean, there's a lot of good tourniquets out there, but that was the first one approved by the TCCC committee. It's what I used in the Army. It's all I carry. You know, you got shears. You can't treat what you can't see. Right. So cutting those clothes off, getting them what I call trauma naked, getting those clothes off. There's wounds, bullets go in, they do weird stuff and come out weird places. So you see a gunshot wound to the chest, it might have exited an armpit or something. So the shears, not a lot of people carry shears, believe it or not, you know? And so I think that's awesome. And then the Israeli is one of my favorite. I actually brought an old expired one here to, if we wanted to open it or whatever. But the things I like about those is the half moon in them. So those are killer because it provides, sorry, I'm making a lot of noise in the mic here because I'm opening up this packaging. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, in my med kits, I will take this out of here. Okay. So, because if you look, it's still wrapped.
You got another wrapper.
You see how hard that, I mean, unless you rip it down the side,
but if you get a little bigger than wet,
me, so you could probably,
you got blood on your hands, you're sweaty.
Yeah.
You got to go a second time.
So this is still sealed. So I'll usually just break it down just to that, you know what I mean? And then it's got an easy tear. Tears right open, but I'll open this up. But the thing I like about these, and there's nothing wrong with trauma dressings, I still use those, but you got the pad here. So I'll show you in there. But this half moon is on the Israeli is what's really cool, because as you start to wrap, you can come through and then bring it back over on itself. And it's hard to do and it's not on somebody, but essentially it comes back over the wound. And then as you wrap over it, it applies direct pressure, right?
Some real good purchase on there.
Because your best friend and the number one thing for any bleeding trauma is what? Direct pressure. I was always told hold pressure 3 to 5 minutes, right? Like that's your number one go-to. And the other thing I like about these Israelis is there's a little tab in here. Have you opened one of these?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what's cool is it holds it together. Cause a lot of times when you open gauze or something, it goes and it goes across the room. It's in the dirt
like a Jack
now.
In the Box.
Yeah, it's in the dirt. If you're on a dirt range, like the California range day, it was like moon dust. Do you remember that? It got everywhere.
I remember it. I'm traumatized.
Yeah. So if this was to fall in that moon dust, now I'm stuffing your wound full of dirt, right? But this holds it together and just easily tears as you go, right? So that's kind of cool.
It keeps it organized. I actually, so it's interesting you brought that Israeli guys, because I've been like in my car kit, I carry 2 different sizes. I have the 6-inch band and the 4-inch just depending. Here's my rationale on that. And going back to the tourniquet in there and keeping it on top. I recently started calling it a rat tourniquet as well because of 2 reasons. One, my stepdaughter she's very tiny. Very tiny. And these soft tourniquets, they're just not going to work on her. They're just not. I mean, her arms are poor thing. She'll grow into them, but she's tall and lanky. But I also have my dog.
I was gonna say, there you go. You just nailed both of them.
Yeah.
100%. The rat tees, not a big fan of them, but great for kids and great for dogs because you can get onto the tiniest. I mean, I've wrapped them around wires, wire on wire, and created pressure, right? So you nailed it. I mean, absolutely if you would ask me, what do you think about the rat? I would have been like, great for kids, great for dogs.
Yeah. That's it. I never thought about carrying one until even with the little one, until the dog came along. I was like, I definitely need these. And then I thought, why wasn't I carrying one of these? So going back to the gauze. So I have the gauze or the Israeli gauze in my backpack,
which is great because I like a mix too. Like I carry a couple of these in my trauma bag that goes on with me with call outs, but I also carry like the North American Rescue style, like the ETD, the emergency trauma dressing. Same thing. It just doesn't have this half moon that's hard plastic, but it creates pressure and it adheres to itself. When you're done wrapping, it keeps it wrapped. I carry a bunch of those in there. One of my IFACs has an Israeli. One of my other IFACs has a ETD. They both work great. Both do the same thing, doing direct pressure. The Israelis are just cool because of this half moon.
Okay. So, all right. So that covers sort of the gauze and stuff, kind of positioning or whatever. So this is like my car kit. And this is what, there's one in every vehicle. It's easily accessible. Things I'm thinking when I'm out in the car are not necessarily gunshot wounds. I'm thinking vehicle accidents, severe bleeds. We're out playing, hiking, whatever. We're on the beach. Somebody falls down, gets cut severely by glass or something like that. However, I want to feel like I'm ready for just about anything, given my training experience and my knowledge. So I don't know, man. Open that thing up and tell me what you think.
So again, you got shears right here on the outside, which is great, right? You can't treat what you can't see. Looks like you got some pouches here for tourniquets. I always just like to run. Oh, you got one right up here. So you got the soft tourniquet, which is good. Easy, accessible, right? Like my trauma bags here on the floor, the rubber band. To the outside.
You got like 18 of them on there.
That's what I was taught in the Army. You attach them to the outside rubber bands because when you go to pull one off, the rubber bands break and the tourniquet comes with you, right? So, but again, tourniquets, I see them all the time. They're buried in the bottom of the IFAC, right? Seconds matter if you're putting on a tourniquet. It needs to be on the outside, which is what these pouches are for. But generally, the pouches. From one of these days, I'm going to make my own pouch. I swear.
They're really tight.
They're tight and they're hard to get them in. They're hard to get them out. And
that's
no one
why.
uses them. And then, but I mean, you did good. You found a clip, right? Mm-hmm. You found something and you made it work. So you got your soft tourniquet there, which is awesome. I always tell people in any kit, either on your person or in your kit, I try to carry at least 2, right?
There's another one inside.
Awesome. There we go. Oh, see now what's really great here is that your kit needs to be easy to see, right? Like if you're just throwing everything in a fanny pack, that's great. But this kit here, I just opened it up and I can see everything. SWAT tees, not the best tourniquet, but they have their place. I did a wet lab at a TAC medic school I did, and it was on a pig. It was killed humanely. It was going to get killed anyways for PETA, if you're listening. It was all humane, but I did a wet lab and there was just a nub of one of this pig's legs left. I did my damnedest to put on a cat T because it's alive. They're pumping blood through it. So you get the squirt the whole 9, right? So I'm cupping my hand on it, squirting all over me. I'm trying to get this cat T on. You know, one thing that got it to stop?
The SWAT.
The SWAT T, because it adheres on itself. So it's not my go-to tourniquet.
It's there for that,
but it has a purpose. Situation. And what a lot of people don't realize, it makes an awesome pressure dressing. Yeah. So if you got a big wound, you wrap it and then wrap this guy around it. And now you've got that much more pressure amount of pressure on there.
That's actually why I put it in there. It was less about stopping from, for a regular tourniquet, because there's another one of those in there, and I think there's at least 1 or 2 rat tees.
Yeah, you got 2 rat tees.
But that was for the pressure piece, because that's what I recognized that's where the real value in my head came from.
But if for some reason you are let's say off-roading side-by-sides, I love side-by-sides, right? How many videos have you seen on the internet where somebody loses
yard sailing?
And if it just happens to be right at the shoulder, the cat team may not do the job. If you got a nub, the SWAT team might be your go-to on a nub. And then it looks like you've got some just rolled bandage. And again, size. This is just the bigger stuff. Like what I have here is just normal, Curlex, right? Uh-huh. This is what we put in our kits at work, but that's because there's a bag like this big, right? But it's cheap. This is like 60, 70 cents. This is probably pretty close to that price, where when you get something like what's in my kit, which is the compressed from North American, it's great when you're trying to fit in a small place, but it's like $1.20, right? Yeah. It's like double the cost. So, hey,
a lot of people don't realize how expensive it is to put together a really good kit.
Oh no. And that's the problem is people go, oh, I want to build a kit. And then I tell them the price and they go, no, I don't. Yeah. It's like, well, it could save your life.
Yeah, but they'll spend $1,800 on a fucking handgun.
Or they'll go buy 5 ARs, and it's like, this will save your life. You're more likely to use this in your lifetime numerous times than you are to shoot somebody with your gun.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly the way I look at it. Yeah.
Gloves, which are great. You never know what somebody has. I always tell my boys on the team and my patrol officers, like, I'm not going to waste time putting on gloves for you guys. I'm going in. But Joe Schmo, I don't know, like suspect, or a victim, just a normal citizen. I don't know what they have.
Yeah,
so
please.
Gloves are important, but you can do stuff while you're putting on gloves, right? You can glove up one hand and check for a pulse, right? You can glove up one hand and put your hand over a chest wound, right? And seal it, right? You're sealing it. You're doing the same thing as a chest seal with the gloved hand, right? So you can still work as you're putting on gloves. Or I'll put these on as I'm walking up to somebody. I'm talking to them. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm here to, or just calling out obvious injuries. You can start putting these on. I will say for the listeners, they're blue. My department gives out black gloves. And let me tell you a thing about black gloves. They're cool. They're tactical, right? But I try to carry a separate pair of tan or blue gloves on SWAT callouts. They don't always make it in my pocket. Worst case, I have black, but I try to go with tan or blue. And the reason being is black gloves, you can't tell what the fluid is.
Can't see the color.
You can't see the color. So now you're wiping it. Now you're wiping your hands on the ground trying to look for blood. It's the same thing under low light, right? Like white light, you can see blood, but what is the other source that you're always taught to use? Red light. Yeah. Right. Because it doesn't affect your night vision. Right. But But what happens is red on red, you can't tell. So my light is white, red, and blue.
Got it.
Because blue, you can see blood. But again, kudos for the blue gloves, because then when you're raking, right, when you're looking for wounds, you're doing a raking motion with your hands as you go head to toe looking for blood. It's going to show up a lot better on blue gloves. It looks like you got some quick clot.
Yeah. So quick clot.
I'm a new fan of it.
Yes or no?
You know, I'm a new fan of it. Being in the military, I was like hard pressed on the combat gauze, and combat gauze is great. Quick clot though is slightly cheaper. So if you are trying to do it on a budget, it will work. This one here is a little bit smaller. If you look at one of the combat gauzes, if I pull them out, you're going to get a little bit more. We'd have to look at the yardage
surface
here.
Area.
Yeah,
Pretty small.
So this is 2 foot. So you're not going to get as much as the combat gauze. I would have to pull one out to look, but I believe it's like 3 or 4 feet. I would have to pull it out to look. But it works, right? It's better than just normal gauze. And for those of you that don't know, like, hey, what's quick clot? What's combat gauze, right? What's the difference? Standard gauze, you can still pack a wound with standard gauze. But the cool thing about quick clot and combat gauze, why it makes it so expensive, is because there's agents in there that help stop the bleeding, right? It helps the bleed stop quicker. And I won't get into the science of it and all that, because hundreds of people, hundreds of videos can explain it better than I can, because I'm no doctor. But that's where the price difference goes. So again, you wouldn't want to go out there and just wrap a normal wound with your quick clot or your combat gauze. That's what your standard gauze is for. This is for more packing wounds and junctionals. And I got a cool saying, don't let me forget to remember how to use this stuff and when. But quick clot's not for everything, but you got that in there. What else you got back here? All right. Is it okay if I pull everything out?
Yeah, man. Go ahead. Yeah.
Such a pain in the ass.
No, we can get it all back in there.
All right. So yeah, you just got some sponges, some alcohol, sterile pads. Yep. Some basically 4x4s. I carry about 8 to 9 4x4s. They're just good for just putting on baby wounds or starting to hold pressure before you start wrapping. And then it looks like you just got some more bandage there.
Yeah.
Chest seals are always good. Chest seals is one of those things that, like, especially if you are dealing with gunshot wounds, you'll run out of these real quick. So just keep that in mind. Reason being is because generally what goes in the front comes out the back.
Right.
So big rule, if you find a wound on the front, get a gloved hand on it, put the seal on there. But as soon as you get a seal on it, you need to check the back. But like I said earlier, bullets do weird things. Like I've seen them go in the chest and come out in the armpit. Right. But the problem is if you get 2 or 3 gunshot wounds in a chest and they're spread out far enough that you can't get one seal,
more than one hole.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to put 2 seals on the front. Well, there's one in each of these. And now you go to the back and there's 2 holes in the back and they're spread apart. Mm-hmm. So another thing you can do is you've got the full size here for the camera. This is the full size. They also make a compact, which the trainer is a full size, but I have some compact ones somewhere I can show you, but they're just a little smaller. Doesn't cover as much surface area, but you can get a lot more of them in your pack if you're trying to keep your pack small. And then you got the 2 rat tees, which again, they serve a purpose, right? Kids, dogs. For dogs, these are awesome. I've never had to do any work on a dog, but
I was going to ask you about that with your military training.
No, I haven't. I will be the first to tell you I never went downrange. Okay. So I never went overseas, but even at work with our canines, fortunate enough, I've never had to do any work on a canine.
That's good news. I don't want those guys getting shot.
No. And luckily we got like 24-hour vets close by. So chances of me working on a dog are very few, but they are good. A lot of our canine handlers carry these on their vests, on their exterior carriers. A little bit of duct tape. I love it. High speed tape, right? As they call it in the military. You can fix a lot of stuff with duct tape.
I wouldn't have gotten this far in life without duct tape.
Right. So this is a little thing that people like look over, but you can get these little pre-rolls from like North American Rescue. And I keep mentioning North American Rescue.
That's where half that shit came from.
Just to put it out there before I forget is you can buy anything on Amazon these days. You can buy anything on the internet, but reputable stuff. There are fake tourniquets out there.
We've seen them.
And they snap, they break.
The windlass.
So buy from a reputable source, right? Go to North American Rescue. They're awesome. If you're a cop or first responder, you can set up an account and get a discount. Or just somebody you know. Like, I'm not going to sell you bad stuff, right?
Right.
You know where I'm going to get it from? North American Rescue. So I'll just send you over there. But buy from a reputable place. And then it looks like you got a 4-inch ETD or emergency trauma dressing here and 2 Israelis. I mean, you're pretty good and set, but I will say this. So something to think about, especially because this is a truck kit, right?
Hit me.
So when you're thinking about a truck kit or a boat kit, think of like you said, the stuff outside, the stabbings or the shootings. I would make this kit slightly bigger if you can swing it.
Oh yeah, it's easy to do. It's in the truck.
SAM splints, broken limbs, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere, right? Resetting a injury, don't recommend it. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you get one try at it. And if you can't do it, leave it. But if you can reset it and stop a bleed or something, and then get it splinted, that could save somebody's life. So maybe just one SAM splint. And if this bag was slightly just taller, you could just slide them in the back. My SAM splints, they're in the back of my pack. Gotcha. So they're actually up against my back. I don't even feel them because they just lay flat. Yep. And some of them you can even fold over. So if this was even a little bigger this way, you could fold it over, put it in here. But a big thing, hypothermia. You can get hypothermia in the middle of the summer, right? Given circumstances, especially if you lay somebody down on a cold surface and you've got them trauma naked, you've now cut all their clothes off. That cold concrete or grass, it's literally going to suck the heat and the life from somebody. So putting them back on their clothes, survival blanket.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, like it's not in the kit, but all the consoles and all the vehicles have like 3 or 4 of those little Mylar things in there.
But again, if you go to your lowest form of training and you grab this kit
and you don't have it on you.
Or this is what you take with you. You just talked to me earlier about a 15-mile bike ride, right? You were at your turnaround.
Right.
If you take this on your bike ride and
it doesn't do you any good.
The blankets are in the car.
Yeah, it doesn't do you any good.
Go on a hike. So that's just something to think about because they're small too. They're like the size of your Quick Clot, maybe just a little thicker, and they're $1 or $2 on North American Rescue. Right. Put like 2 or 3 of those in there. Just something to think about. But otherwise, this kit is awesome. I give you kudos. And I can tell that you did it with budget in mind. So you could prove like you don't need to buy the fancy S-rolled stuff. Does it have its purpose? Like the S-rolled gauze from North American Rescue, that's $2. Yes. That is what's in my trauma bag at my feet that I take on every SWAT call out. Why? Because it's efficient and it's quick, but it's expensive. So in the little personal kits that I build for my wife's car and my car, I have the same stuff. It's stuff that hand-me-downs from AMR or, stuff that the hospital says, oh, here, you can have this.
That's kind of how this came together. Cause if you get on, you start looking at, okay, so I want a kit in my car. Of course there are companies out there that make anything you want. Like you want the smallest kit, the budget kit for $20 all the way up to, $500-600,
5,000.
Yeah,
I mean, you can,
depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, you can get a pack like mine that's fully kitted out from North American Rescue. I think it's like $5,600.
Half the shit in there wouldn't know what the hell to do with, right? But
honestly, a lot of people tell me that, but like there's some stuff in my bag you'd probably be like, okay, I don't know. But most of it is just an IFAC built out for more people.
Gotcha.
It's
more volume.
Instead of just having the 4-inch ETD, I have the 6, the 8, I have the abdominal, right? Instead of just having one thing of chest seals, I have compact, I have full size, I have multiple, right?
Gotcha.
So all a big kit is there's some specialty tools in there, but it's
like repeats.
You just don't leave anything out and you do multiple quantities of everything. Gotcha. My bag, I tell people all the time, it's just a big IFAC. It's a giant IFAC just meant for 2, 3, 4 bodies.
For you and for me. And
yeah, exactly.
Everybody in a car.
It's not as scary as it sounds. It's just more stuff.
Gotcha. So get some blankets in there.
I would. If you already have them, just find a place to stuff them. And to be honest with you, you'd be amazed once you start like stuffing stuff. And, oh man, this is giving me anxiety right now because I hate every time I have to dump
don't worry about it.
I know, but every time I have to dump out my IFAC, I'm like, oh, here we go again. I got to pack it in.
It's all good, man. It's all good. We won't empty these, but I do want to talk about these because
those are awesome. Well, what company is that?
So this is Live the Creed.
Live the Creed.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I love it because it's basically like it looks like your old man's wallet.
Yeah.
Right. It's just stuff like
just stuff full of business cards from 1970, the vacuum salesman.
And his rewards cards from Lake Tahoe or whatever 5 years ago that I'll never use again. But basically, in essence, what it has in here is sort of smaller versions of what you just looked at. There's some gauze in here. There's some gloves in here. There's a chest seal in here. And there is that S-rolled gauze is in here. And the reason that's in here, not in there, exactly, because it's compact. And this is, again, like I love having this because it sits in my bag. And if I'm leaving the bag and I going somewhere.
And see here, that compact chest seal I was talking about, that's what this is.
Yep, exactly.
It's just the compact, it's the white package, and it's just smaller. And again, it's just to fit more. The only downside is you lose some surface area coverage. But at the end of the day, if you've got some sort of tourniquet, and a lot of times you can carry it on your person in your pocket or whatnot, so it's quick and easy to get to. People ask me all the time, what's the bare minimum? Everyone likes to use the word bare minimum. I hate it, right? But if I had to say what the bare minimum is, some sort of gauze, some sort of combat gauze, and probably chest seals. For most traumas, not medical, but for most traumas, you could probably do something with that. Okay. Especially if we're talking like cuts, knives, gunshot wounds, like the stuff that most of this audience is probably thinking, but even the stuff they're not thinking about, that's like the bare minimalist that I would carry. Now, doing more than that's always great, but you know, this kit has that. I see S-rolled gauze. I even see some, is these Band-Aids?
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. The front of, I call it the boo-boo kit. I keep the boo-boo kit in the front zipper because I use it more than anything.
Right.
I use that more than anything. There's liquid Band-Aid and a Ziploc bag full of Band-Aids. So that way when the team's like, hey, I need a Band-Aid, it's right in front. They don't go digging through my bag and
empty everything out. Yes, I have you here. Yeah.
I have a funny story about that too. We were on a call once and one of my teammates was starting to do medical and he's throwing my stuff everywhere. We all have masks on, right? We've gassed this guy. And I look at him dead in his face. He's like people are throwing tourniquets at me, like they're all being helpful, but it's like, at some point I just kind of got to take over, you know, and deem one person to help me and everybody else go away. Yeah. And this was a learning experience of where I needed to be a chief because this was now my thing. And I needed to be like, you're going to help me and everybody else, you know, go away. And I looked at him dead in his face and I looked at him and I said, stop yard selling my shit, you know? And I went up to him after, I'm like, dude, I'm really sorry, man. I was like, you were just like, shit was flying everywhere and you were looking for stuff, but I know exactly where everything is. And that again goes back to being prepared. And like I said earlier, those SOPs, knowing what you have, where it is and how to use it, because you need to get right to it. Right. And so it's important to know your own stuff. Let's talk about that guy.
Yeah. Just last thing about this. Yeah. So this is not my favorite. So this is for those that aren't watching, this is basically an ankle worn IFAK, right? And it has basically all the same stuff in it that my belt worn IFAK would have in it.
Right.
It's just, it's on my ankle. And I'll tell you why I have it on, why I bought it, because I started training concealed a lot more. And I wasn't out on the range for hours and hours at a time. I'd go out and get some practice done and I wanted to have something on me. And what I found myself doing was stuffing shit in my pockets. Like I've got a tourniquet hanging on my pocket here. And like, you know, you don't have a dump pouch on. So if you're moving mags around things were just getting in the way.
It's the curse of the BDUs, right?
Yes.
Like you get used to having BDUs and you're like, I'm just going to stuff everything in my BDUs.
The next thing you know, it's your pockets are full of shit and you're trying to be mobile. So that's why I bought it. And I have to say, I do like it for that, but obviously it's problematic for reasons as well in terms of accessing it. So maybe you could kind of talk through some of the downsides.
Like anything else, somebody developed it because it's got a purpose. So what I tell people is know the purpose. And if it works for you, it works for you, but don't try to make it something that's not, right? Like for me, the problem with this is I'm a Bay Area kid, right? So I grew up on every kind of music. You can catch me in Jordans or Nikes one day, but the next day I might be wearing cowboy boots. Yeah. This doesn't fit down in my boot and it don't fit over my boot. So it goes out the window, right? The other thing I found is like, if you're wearing shorts, you look like you're on probation or parole and you got an ankle monitor on, right? So you're only going to really wear it like out in public if you got jeans on.
I'm not wearing that shit in public. That's purely range time.
So the thing with that is it gets dirty, right? And stuff starts wearing. So now you're wearing on your cat, right? And you're rubbing on it, especially doing positional shooting, which you all should be, right? And then things start to just wear and tear, you know, like you haven't yet, but like the corners of these chest seals, they'll start to rip and tear. And now you're dealing with equipment that's not ideal.
It's compromised. Yeah.
So these are good for like, if you have like tailored pants, like let's say you're listening and I'm trying to hit the broad audience here. Let's say you're doing executive protection. And you want to wear something, but you're suit and tie. Right. So you're probably concealing a firearm under your jacket, but what do you do for medical? This is an option. If your pants are tailored for it, right? Cause you don't want to print it still cause you stand out. And the whole point is you're not supposed to stand out, but it's hard not to print this giant kit. But if you can get it to work, or doing like all my battle belts and my SWAT belt have the LBX or LBT, that center pouch. I like those. Blue Force makes a center pouch that, you know, you can pull across it. It's an insert similar to your LTC. But that's another good one for executive protection because now it's in your lower back and you can still put it on a dress belt and hopefully your jacket covers it and no one knows it's there.
Good point.
But now it has a downfall again, right? Just like this has a downfall. Those, if you got to sit in a car for hours,
it's
miserable.
Yeah, it's jacking up your lumbar spine.
I won't ever wear one of those on patrol because it's right in my back. But for the team, sure. For my training belt, sure.
Right.
But it has a purpose, right? You don't go out and wear it on patrol.
Yeah. So there's just, I guess the point of it is like there's application for all of it. That's not my favorite. Like if you're out and it's wet, then that thing's getting wet, right? Like if you're in high grass, it's picking up everything as you're going through there.
That was my biggest thing is like, I'm not a big dude, I'm athletic at best. Right. But my ankles, being a skinnier guy, this thing has to be so tight, and then it chafes and it rubs around. Yep. And the thing is I found is if you're not comfortable with it, you're not going to wear it. Right. Like if you buy a piece of equipment and it rubs you the wrong way or it irritates you, what do you do with it?
You huck it. Or just sits in the closet.
I ain't going to wear that, but you have it. It has a purpose. So yeah, if it works for you in certain applications, great. Why not?
So let's talk about what you got here just in terms of training and what you're doing and how you get people on board with this. Because you made some custom kits here, training kits. And so I think you're going to touch on some of the stuff that you've pulled out of my bag here. Yeah. So let's go through what you're doing. What do you got going on over there?
So like anything else, you got to train, right? Like being a gym guy, people say, I want to get bigger. I want to get stronger. You got to go train, right? You got to eat right. You got to train. Oh, I want to be a better shooter. Okay, go dry fire. No one wants to dry fire, right? I tell people all the time on the range as a firearms instructor, hey, 10 minutes a day or even 10 minutes a couple times a week, after your workout will change your shooting phenomenally. There's nothing that will get rid of live fire. Don't get me wrong, right? But 10 minutes a day or a couple times a week for 10 minutes will it'll take your shooting to a whole new level. Like I've been off my game with the wedding coming up and I haven't been doing my dry fire. But when I do it and I go to classes, it's night and day of what kind of shooter I am.
There is transfer. Right.
But where people don't, and this is where I'm trying to be vocal in this community, is people don't think that way towards medical gear.
That's a good point.
People don't train medical. Okay.
If they go to a class once a year.
There's so many shooters out there, competitive shooters, cops that don't go to any medical classes. Right. And my thing is that like everything's a perishable skill. Like I just talked about, I haven't done my dry fire. I guarantee you I would right now, if we went out to the range, I wouldn't be as quick as I was. I would fumble through some reloads, right? Knock the dust off. It's a perishable skill. You can be the best at it, but if you don't do it for a long time, sure, it's like a bike. You'll pick it up. You'll be all right at it. You'll be better than most, but you're not going to be your best. And when you need it the most. Yeah. When it comes to medical, I just feel like not enough people take it seriously. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to make holes, you should know how to plug holes. And I think we talked about this earlier. You're more likely to use an IFACT or medical training than you are to pull your gun out on somebody and shoot them, right? You're more likely to use this. But in our community, being the gun community, right? Not so much the fitness, but in the gun community, everyone's training for that moment, right? That moment that guy breaks into my house or the guy's up at my window going to armed rob me, right? But what about if you roll up on scene? I've seen something.
I've already experienced that several times in my own life. Like I've never had anybody. Well, it's not true, but I've been in some pretty hairy situations that could have been violent, really, really bad. And I've actually been in a few violent situations, but never as many as I've ever had to help somebody in some type of medical situation, whether that be from the Heimlich maneuver or help somebody like in a car accident. I've run into those situations multiple times.
Right. So why not have the gear and have the IFAC, which you have. A lot of people don't have that, and then go out and get the training. And I'm going to be training on the civilian side here real shortly with GCS training. Shout out to Curtis and Jason. They gave me a home, so I appreciate them very much. But again, all my certs for training had expired. So the only certs I have are for the cop world, post-certified. So I've been working on renewing all my civilian side. So that's going to be coming real soon. I'll be training through GCS training. Check them out, gcstraininggroup.com. We have Instagrams, GCS training. I think it's all underscores right now, GCS_training_group. Okay. I'll be training for them, but it all be NAEMT certified. So again, what we talked about earlier, it's approved by a doctor. You know, I'm going to give you a certificate saying Joe Schmo doctor said that I could teach you this. And now you have their certificate for a year, 2 years, 4 years, depending on the class, that proves that you come and taken my class. Okay. Right. So, to get back to this kit, I wanted training materials to provide at my class.
And we already talked about how expensive some of that shit is in that kit over there, right?
And here's the thing too, a lot of people don't realize, especially when it comes to tourniquets, you don't want to use your go-to tourniquet as your training tourniquet. Okay. These tourniquets are blue, right? And everything in this kit here is blue. And that's because it's indicated as a training item. So that way I don't use it real world. Now, could I use this torn down, beat up? Could it work?
That it's been applied 18 times.
Oh, this thing, this was a hand me down from the Army. So this thing's probably been applied.
That's in pretty good shape.
Yeah. And my PDs used it. But if I absolutely had to, would it work? Yes. Yeah. But is there a risk of it failing? Yes. So your real world stuff, black, orange, high vis, if you want orange or black, cool. But don't train with that. Buy stuff that is blue, or even take old tourniquets.
I think there's some that are orange. I've seen the
a lot of guys use those though on for real world, just as like high vis, right? Okay. It's easy to find. But you could take old tourniquets and just write training in a silver Sharpie, right? But the point I'm getting at is, one, I wanted something to provide my students, right? You come to my class, you get a tuition, you're going to get a kit, and it's the supplies you need for my class. It's the stuff we're going to go over, but it goes home with you. Cool. You paid for it. So now you got something to train with.
Work on your skills.
Right. And so me being me, if there's something out there and it just isn't what I want, I'm going to find a way. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to go to SHOT Show this year and linked up with North American Rescue, great company. And they do these cool custom kits. Got my logo on it. It's got its own part number, vacuum sealed with my logo on it. Looks all nice and professional. And they make these for me. And for those of you listening, it's through North American Rescue, and it is kit number 85-3911. And that is the TACMED Sims IFAC trainer. It's the individual first aid kit trainer. And what it comes with here, and I'll just read it off for you guys. It comes with one cat tourniquet, and it's blue. One responder emergency dressing, flat and 4-inch, also blue. Combat gauze trainer bandage, which is just gauze. I don't know why it's just gauze in the combat medic package. That's kind of, God, if I can make this stuff, I'd be rich. And then a hyphen trainer chest seal, twin pack, and then blue responder gloves.
And so, this is all training material.
All training material. Right. It's all blue. Obviously the cat tee is easy to reuse over and over. I get asked all the time, well, how am I supposed to reuse these hyphen chest seals? Well, they come on plastic. You peel them off of plastic. If you take them off of whatever you're putting them on gently and in the right fashion, you can put them right back on the plastic and get multiple uses out of them. And the combat gauze, you're right. But at least if you do a scenario, you get that sensation of opening the package. And like you said, if wet hands, a lot of my stuff, I buddy tab it, which is something else I don't think I went over that I learned in the Army. Wherever there's a tear or something to pull on, take a little bit of medical tape and just create a tab on the opposite side. You can grab this whole package with your hand, and that little buddy tab gives you something to grab onto it to open packages.
Yeah. So it's like this tourniquet. And I've actually seen you've done
I did a video on it.
Yeah, you did a video on it. It was great. Cause I'd been doing, I was like, I do this all the time, and I've actually never seen anybody do a video on this. This is good practical knowledge, but leaving that little tab so that you can get your fingers on it, so you're not trying to get your fingernail
in the video you're talking about is on my Instagram. Yeah. I made an Instagram years ago to kind of separate my personal life and all of this. So it's TACMED Simps. So it's just all one word, TACMED, and then Simps, SIMPS. And some of these videos are pinned to the top. The one that Scott's talking about is just one where I talk about the little things, just leaving a little tab here, giving you something to grab onto when you're putting the retention strap in for your windlass on your cat tee. You know, if you put it on and there's nothing to grab onto and it wears and things rub on it and rub, it gets harder and harder to unvelcro that.
Seconds count.
It's seconds count. You just leave yourself a little tab. It gives you something to grab onto. It's crazy, the little things that I've just learned over the years that I want to teach people that'll save you time and effort. But back to this kit, it's not on their website. Unfortunately, North American Rescue makes a ton of custom kits, so it's not on their website. But you can call in if you're a trainer, and I give you full permission. Anybody reach out, please, though, so I know you're using it, because I love to hear that. But please feel free to use that item number, called North American Rescue, and you can order these kits. And if you're a first responder or a company tax exempt, they'll probably offer you some sort of discount. I think retail on it's like $75, but it comes with all the stuff. It's vacuum sealed, and it's nice, has everything you need in there. Please feel free to use that. And that's for you, Scott, for today.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. And, I'm just looking at this, I'm going, every business should have one of these. Every school, should have one of these. Every church should have one of these. Oh, right?
I just went fishing a couple weeks ago with my now brother-in-law, and I was like, "Hey, where's your med kit?" Oh, I got this little thing over here, and it's like this ringy ding. I'm like, dude, I'm buying you an IFAC. I ordered him one. It hasn't come in yet, but it's like in a nice Pelican case, for the boat. But it's like, yeah, you're right. The IFACs are first aid kits. We won't call them individuals. Like that whole IFAC thing, just first aid kits. They should be everywhere, and not like when you go to places like, I have a first aid kit. What is it? Band-Aids. alcohol wipes,
right?
Tweezers. Okay, cool.
It's a boo-boo kit.
Yeah, it's a boo-boo kit, and that's fine. Everyone should have a boo-boo kit, but the boo-boo kit should be inside of your trauma kit, right? Or your first aid kit. So again, this is just something where there was other kits out there, but it didn't have exactly what I want. Most of my students bring their own shears, right? I like the Raptor shears from Leatherman. They fold up in your pocket and have a cool clip. I have one, but it's in my locker at work. But I found that most students that would be coming to my class have shears or whatever. So just to knock down, just to knock down the cost a little bit. I didn't put the shears in there, but literally that's the only other thing you would need. And so you come to my class, we'll go through all this stuff, teach you how to use it. I talked earlier a little bit about a good thing I use to remember, and I'm stealing it from somebody else. So if I steal an idea from somebody, I always throw their name out there, and it's Dark Angel Medical. They have an image that I love. I use it all the time at the PD, and it's a silhouette of a person, and it's got dots on the extremities, and it says tourniquet the limbs. And then it's got a box on the chest. It says seal the box. And then it's got dots in your neck, your armpits, and your groin, and it says pack the junctionals. So I tell all my officers, if you can remember to tourniquet the extremities, seal the box front and back, right, and you know how to pack the junctionals, preferably with combat gauze, but any gauze will work, you can treat 99% of the trauma out there, and you're going to be using these items. You're going to be using the tourniquet for the limbs, and all this stuff. So again, it was just something where I sat down and I said, this is what I want. And, there it is. That's the kit. I got a few of them at the house for people and stuff like that. But if you want them in bulk, like I said, either hit me up or hit North American Rescue up, and we'll get you taken care of.
These are great, man. And again, it just gives people, somebody who may not be thinking this way or hasn't been thinking this way, a good visual on, kind of what they could, how to put one together for themselves. So if they want to order from Amazon, North American Rescue, or whatever else, what I mean is like the stuff to make their own, much like I did over here.
Right. And again, when we talked about that minimalist setup,
this is perfect.
That's the minimalist, man. That is like bottom of the barrel. That's as low as I would go.
I want to talk about the scissors too, because one of the things, when you take your bag on the airplane, you cannot take scissors on the airplane, right? Like I can't take I carry a knife, like a little pocket, a little blade every day in my pocket. It just goes everywhere with me. It opens
Can I just say how good this stuff
is?
I know. It's empty. Like
mine's been gone a while now, but the scissors you can't take on the plane. So if you were to go somewhere and they were providing these, you're flying in somewhere to take a course with somebody and they had these, you wouldn't have to worry about getting your scissors on the airplane at the end. The reason I say that is I went to a course, I was provided a kit.
Oh no.
And it had scissors and I had to
throw them away.
I had to throw the scissors away.
Luckily, if you just want basic trauma shears, they're not too expensive these days. But again, that's the kit, and it's you guys can always hit me up, reach out to me anytime about that.
A couple more questions before we go. So you brought in this target for me to look at today, which is almost like in total contrast to everything that we've been talking about.
So this is the other side of my passion, and that is shooting. I love shooting. I love to shoot. I am a firearms instructor, department armorer as well. You do
it all, man.
You name a local. It's just, it's the stuff I'm passionate about. Like if you know me, I like to shoot and I like trauma medical. That's my thing. Right. But this actually got developed because I was sick of our department's qual was on that old school revolver qual target where it looks like a bowling ball and has a giant soccer ball in the middle. And it's just not practical, right? And in this day and age, people are using like the graphics, but then people go up in arms about what the graphic looks like or what sex they are or what race they are, right? So I wanted to target
silly to me,
but it's true though, right? It's so true, unfortunately, right? And so I wanted to develop a target that reflected why we're shooting in certain areas and why we're doing certain things. So I started developing this target, and I stole some ideas from other people. Some of the main targets out there. I can't think of all their names, otherwise I'd give them
credit. There's a million of them.
There's a million of them, right? So what I did is I took this target and just looking at it, I just started with what is your standard target as far as scoring? And that's an IPSC target, right? Yeah. It's kind of your ACD zone.
It's your cardboard. Yeah.
Easy to score, right? Because a qual has to have some sort of standard, some sort of scoring. So I started off, again, there wasn't anything out there I exactly wanted. So I started off with this IPSC target. And then from there I said, okay, I can't give you the realistic because of it's a he, she, whatever, right? So I wanted to put vitals in there. So I put vitals in there so we see why we're shooting A zone, and specifically upper A zone. So I'll give you credit for shooting that IPSC A zone, but that's a big area. like, let's hold ourselves to a higher standard. So for like the SWAT team, for instance, you know, we haven't started implementing this target yet. We just got all this printed out. Targets have just come in. But the idea with this is that like for maybe the department, we use the whole A zone, but for the SWAT team at a higher standard, we use these dotted lines across the A zone to make the standard
a little tighter,
the upper A zone. Cause what's in that upper A zone? You got a whole lot of spine, a whole lot of lung, and you got a heart. Right. So that's the standard. And then I noticed that qual days, we were blowing away targets. So we had a retention shot at like 3 yards, right? Poop.
Yeah, you're wasting.
The target goes.
It's just, you're just blowing a huge hole.
So for one, I moved the retention shooting to the end of our qual. So if we blow the target to smithereens, we've already scored it. Right. But also, people don't realize how much damage you can do in this pelvic girdle, right?
This needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.
This needs to be talked about more because everybody's going A zones.
You shoot in this, let's be honest.
Because it's in the D.
We aim for the A zone because big target, right? And center when mass. Stress happens, and I can tell you, I was 50%, right? I shot twice, hit once, missed once, right? You aim here for a reason. And
you're talking about in the OIS you were in.
Yeah. Yep. So, you know, when you're talking about aiming for chest, there's reasons behind that. And I firmly believe it. But at the same time, if you're fighting somebody and what's their natural reaction? They're going to push your gun down away from their chest, away from their face, right? Everyone's fighting. You see it in the movies.
You mean if you're hand to hand,
right? Yeah. Like you're getting robbed at the ATM, right? And he's pushing that gun down, but it's pointed at his pelvic girdle.
That's a great, take what you can get.
Let them fly, because let me tell you, you will bleed out very rapidly down there. All your major arteries, your major vein that returns blood to they're all based down in that area, and they're closest down there in your back. And so, you know, in that pelvic girdle, you will put somebody down. And let me tell you, even if they don't bleed out, if you shatter some of these pelvic girdles,
they're not moving.
They're not moving. They're going to be a zombie using the army crawl.
Yeah, it's not like hitting somebody in the shoulder or even the chest cavity and them having time to continue to fight you, right? Because they can be ambulatory. They can use their arms and legs still while they're.
It's not like
maybe they're bleeding out. Yeah. Maybe they're bleeding out, but they're not dropping.
It takes time to realize you're hit or to bleed out. Yeah, it's not like the movies. You don't get shot once and
you shatter a pelvis, it's game over.
Yeah. So you got to go for, that's why headshots, the A zone and the pelvic, you got to eliminate the threat, not kill the threat. You got to eliminate it. You got to take it out of the fight as quickly as possible. Right. Yep. So that's a good area that's neglected. So I added that little, area down there
to make it count.
And then same thing for the head, right? Like there's that little tiny credit card A box, but that's a hard standard for somebody. But a lot of people don't realize that small A box, it's because this is the most susceptible part of your skull, is where your eyes are. There's two giant holes. We all see in a skull. Everyone has it tatted on their arm.
Very brittle, very thin bone around those, right?
And they're giant holes. So that's that standard of that small A zone, is to get those rounds in that area.
But the epicenter of the brain is not up there.
Right. It's not.
Right.
And at the same time, if you hit somebody in the mouth with a round and it shatters all their teeth, it may not be lights out, but that is something that is going to change their OODA loop.
Behavior.
Yeah, they're going to rethink what they're doing real quick. So again, I have that high standard of that IPSC A zone, but I then just made a dotted line across the neck and said, hey, that's still a headshot. I'll take anything in there for PD quals, right? So that kind of did that. And then what's cool is you shoot up a target, right? Or it's the beginning of the day and you don't want to mess up your target. You want it to look pretty for Instagram later, right? But you want to warm up. So I put some 3-inch circles on the outside, either end of the day. More
precision.
Yeah. Your target's all shot up, but you don't want to waste that target. You got some other targets to shoot at. Or like I said, beginning of the day, good for confirming zeros. And then what's really cool is one of my DMs, my good friend, asked me to put these dots, and everyone's like, what are these dots, right? So above the 3-inch circles on each corner of my target, there is a 1-inch circle with a 1/2-inch solid circle on the inside. And what that's for is the DMs, or designated marksman. It's a proper term for sniper these days. They can use that for their cold bore shoots. Mm-hmm. So now they can do their cold bore shoots on these 4 small dots.
Oh, cool.
And they can still use this target for training
later. Yeah.
Because guess what? They're way out there. They don't want to come all the way down and reset targets, right? They want to go up on the hill and stay up on the hill.
Yeah,
so they can set up these and do cold bore stuff, right? Or beginning of the day, whatever. And then now they still have this silhouette to shoot at. And then what's really cool is I did that for him because he's my best friend, right? And we're firearms instructors. He's a SWAT dude, armors together. Like he's my boy, right? He was in my wedding. I started playing with the target and I'm like, you know what else this works for? holdovers.
That's what I was just going to say. That's where I thought you were going.
How hard is it to explain holdovers to people? This makes it so easy. You tell them to hold on that 1/2 inch solid black dot and then see where it goes. And what you do is you start, far out or start in, but you mark their hits. You do a red Sharpie and write 3 for 3 yards or 5 yards, mark green Sharpie 7 yards. And now your student or you as a person to understand your holdovers can look at this picture and go, okay, I put the red dot on that 1/2 inch circle every single time. And here's where I'm at here. Here's where I'm at here. Here's where I'm at here. Because it's important to know those, not so much with a pistol, but with your rifle, that's huge.
Yeah, very.
So it just makes it easy, right? You go up there and like I said, you just mark each one, color code them, put the number by it, snap a picture of it. And now you know all your holdovers. So again, this is efficient. This is just something where I wanted something and it wasn't out there. So I was like, I'm going to go out and make it. So it's available. You can go out. I think I might have changed the name. I think this is the wrong name on it. So you guys can hit me up. It does have its own SKU and you can go to Action Target and you can actually just order these direct from Action Target. Sweet. It's on their website. My PD will be using it. They're not going to use my logo. That's fine. I get it. I wish they would. People use VTAC targets at PDs and Fieldcraft survival targets at PDs. Why can't they use the TAC Med? But I had it made with their badge on it. So the PD will be using this with the new qual I developed soon. But for classes and stuff. And again, any of my homies out there that want to get it, just go to Action Target. I'm not in this to make money. I'm not making money off of this. I'm not selling any of this stuff. It's just solutions to problems.
I get it. Yeah. And look, I mean, with all the things that are out there, people are out there on the range training more than they ever have. They're always looking for new stuff. Like, give me something new to shoot at. Give me something.
What's the flavor of this week?
Yeah. But
who are we mad at in the industry? Who we love this week?
There's that too. There's definitely that too. But I think it's also about wanting to improve skill and then finding, again, we were talking about just the basic IPSC targets, and people have come out with some really cool stuff. This just gives you a different perspective, on what you're doing. And it's different. And I think different is good. It drives this, what you're doing now, which is the innovation you found where, look, I'm trying to be more efficient with my time when we're out there. Let's stop wasting time changing out targets, and all this stuff. I mean, all that stuff matters, not to everybody in the same way, but it all matters. I think it's awesome. And again, I think the most exciting part about it is it's what you're doing is driving continued change in people to think a little bit differently about stuff.
And that's all it is, whether it's mental health or it's training or it's medical stuff or just being a good homie. You know what I mean? Like being a change. And I'm not perfect, you know what I mean? And no one is, but if we all just do it a little better and then somebody else does a little better, it drives it. Cause I think we talked about it at the talk, the talk anniversary down at the brewery. And we talked about it. It's like, if you're doing better than me, I shouldn't hate on you if you're doing it the right way, right? If you're driving innovation and change in a positive way, I'm all for it. Let me hop on board. Like, how can I help you with this? Because when it's my turn, hopefully you help me, right? I tell people all the time, I'm going to give you a tool. You're going to put that tool in your toolbox, and then you're going to get another tool and another tool. I've trained with every local. I've trained with Vertac, LMS Defense, OpTempo, obviously GCS, who I'm going to be teaching with. And so shout out to all those people. You know what I mean? I've trained with Fieldcraft Survival, Mike Pannone. Who else? I mean, I've trained with a lot of people, right? But the thing is that they all taught me something different. And it's like you mentioned earlier, you get a little nugget every time. So go out and train, right? And yeah, I get it. You have your homie that's like your go-to. I love the loyalty. If you train 6 times a year, go to those people 5 times. But like
pick somebody else.
But pick somebody else.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Because even if I go to a class and I don't agree with anybody, now I know when I go teach, I'm not going to teach what that guy was doing.
I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, and this is just parallels like on the fitness world or in the health and wellness world. Like what happens is if you don't do that is it gets stuck into it's dogmatic, right? And then there's like these cliques or these clubs within the clubs, and it doesn't make any sense because people end up start hating rather than what you just said, which is the major premise of the show and why I do what I do, which is get people together and let's contribute together so that we grow together. Exactly. And if everybody's doing it with that intention, it is all positive at the end of the day. There's plenty of pie to go around for everybody. People say
it doesn't work. It's because you're the problem.
Yeah. Yes. You're the person that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And to your point, again, it's like, get outside and train more, train differently, put yourself in uncomfortable situations, go to a class that, is completely off, challenge yourself in a different way.
Try new things. One of my goals for 2023 is I want to go do competitive shooting. Never done it. Don't have a clue how to do it. Respect people that do it because memorizing all of that layout. But one of my goals, I told my wife this coming back from.
What are you talking about, like ISPSA?
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. USPSA? I know those names because they make targets, but I don't know the difference between them, and I'm a shooter, but I'd never shot competitively. So that's a world, but I've trained. There's another one I left out, Frank Proctor.
Oh, right? Yeah. The ranch up there.
Like he has a lot of stuff that I cannot do in the PD world, right? It just would not work. But he taught me a lot of stuff that works, right? And that's a tool in my tool. But he also is one of the inspirations that like, okay, I can learn from that. I've trained with other guys that were combat veterans and they were like, oh, I went and did a match and I learned so much about myself in shooting. So that's one of my goals. And it's going to be uncomfortable because I'm supposed to be good at it, right? I'm supposed to be good at shooting, right? I'm supposed to be like this cop, this, whatever, SWAT guy, that macho BS, which I don't play into that. My friends joke with me all the time, like, oh, this guy's on SWAT, right? And I'm like, you're
just a dude.
Just a dude playing disguised as a dude, playing another dude now. But no, it's like all that aside, it's something I'm supposed to be good at, but it's going to be uncomfortable, right? So getting out of that comfort zone that you talked about and doing something new. And I guarantee you, I'm going to make new friends. I'm going to network with new people and I'm going to become a better shooter for it. And even if it's only one match, I want to do one match, go out to Richmond Gun Club or whatever, one of these guys, luckily I've met people and I'm like, hey dude, I want to try this year. And they're like, yeah, I got you. There's a couple people on IG.
Well, that's what happens when you go out and train too. You meet people that can put you in situations to be successful.
And totally, like as an instructor too, like I said, like if you were loyal to me, cool. Like you come to all my classes, right on. I appreciate you. Right. But if you go to one other class a year, even if it sucks, you're going to be at that class going, hey, this is the one nugget that I would take from this class to other people in the class. But here's this dude. You should probably talk to him. Right?
Yeah.
Like exactly. It's good business, right? Like
I couldn't agree with you more. It's sharing the wealth. It's also it's learning. It's beginning to know what you don't know.
Yeah. I mean, look at the California Range Day, weekend range day that we did. That was like several different companies coming together. Right. And like, everyone has their own opinion and everyone, there's always going to be like this or that. But at the end of the day, like I wouldn't have known who these other people, like I met Ollie. Mm-hmm. Tell me how awesome Ollie is. Shout out to Ollie, by the way, if you're listening, dude. Like that dude would give me the shirt
Solutions.
off. Overt Solutions. He would give me his shirt off his back if I called him right now.
I had a really good experience with him and his boy, Eddie. Eddie Runs and Guns. The point of that, I think, that comes out of this is had I not done that, I would not have met the people that I met. I would not have met you. I thought the weekend was hugely valuable for me in many, many ways, but mostly again, and I'm just going to say it, I said at the beginning of the podcast, and that's the community that gets built. And had that not happened, had I not gone, I would not have met you, I would not have met the other guys. There wouldn't be this connection. And, it's local, but from kind of a Northern California area, which I think is special, but at the same time, it starts to help bridge the gaps at a greater level, which is what our community as a whole really needs to do. We need to stop eating our own. We need to stop talking shit about one another. We need to stop thinking that this way is the only way and start maybe being a little bit more open. And it starts by talking about it and putting ourselves in situations where, hey, I'm just going to try something different here and see how this turns out. So I appreciate the push.
And be humble with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not I suck, but like there's something I could be learning here.
Yeah, I think the big thing is like we're all A-type personalities, so being humble is hard. And I do it too. Sometimes I'm like you know what I mean? Like screw that guy, right? But sometimes I find myself going, why am I saying that? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we're different personalities. That's fine, but I totally appreciate, and that's why I really felt comfortable coming on your show is like we had that talk about the community being a community, right? And I'm really for that. And again, I put out my Instagram. People could always hit me up. There's so much we could have talked about, right? For hours and hours. And I'm sure you do this on a lot of your podcasts. You could sit here and talk for hours, right? But if people have questions, they can hit me up. Like I said, I'll be teaching some classes soon. Come out and take some classes. Great. You know what I mean? And just talking about community. Like again, I'm just going to take this opportunity. Overwatch Collective, those are my boys. They got the dinner coming up. Please go see them. I got to shout out my boys at Black Gun Co.
Alfonso
and Hector, right? Yeah. Like, I met those guys like when they were ground level back at the series
on Saturday.
Nice. Yeah. Tell them I said, what's up? I haven't seen them in a while, but I met those dudes when they were like ground level. Right. I was at a training class at Series PD range, and those guys have been the homies. They treat me good. But their community, you know what I mean? And, those guys are great. Overwatch Collective, obviously, GCS training. And I mentioned a ton of local companies, all great companies and all homies. So
what makes it all go around. So what's your Instagram one more time?
It is TacMedSimps. It's TacMedSimps. And it's all one word, and it's on Instagram. I'm not on anything else right now. I'm working on maybe a website soon. But I'll be training with GCS Training Group, which is a GCS_training_group. And so reach out. Did you want that funny story we talked about how I get what TacMedSimps?
Yeah. What is the TacMedSimps thing again? Yeah.
So again, growing up playing sports, it was always last names. So I grew up Simpson this, Simpson that. It's my last name. And I got that a lot. And then, joining the military, last name, Simpson this, Simpson that. You go to the police academy, it's last name, Simpson this, Simpson that. So most people don't call me by my first name, which is my government name is Gregory, right? Right. So at best it's Greg, but most people just call me Simpson or Simps for short, SIMPS, right? Well, I was trying to think of separating my personal life, with my kid and my wife, which you won't see them on TacMedSimps, but they're there. So I'm like, what is this name? Right. And so I'm like, well, everyone just calls me Sims. I'm a TacMed guy. So TacMedSimps. Well, about that time, the whole Simps thing comes out for like subscriber, right? Like the thirsty dude. So then I have people like DMing me and they're like, so you're like, what, are you thirsty? Like you're trapping.
Maybe you should run with that. I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Do the calendar edition.
I literally had to write underneath my bio on my name. It's TacMedSimpson.
Gotcha.
So Simps is just short for Simpson, but I get a lot of crap on IG, like the new people that hop on, like, what is this whole Simps thing? Like, who are you subbing for?
Wait a week, it'll all change.
Whose OnlyFans are you doing?
Wait a week, all this shit will change.
So, and then just stupid stuff like my friends support me, and I had my bachelor party, and they made a little version of me.
Oh, that's perfect.
And then they made these into stickers, and they handed these out at my wedding without my knowledge. So there's about 100 of these at my wedding.
Slapped on the water bottles. Yeah.
Shout out to my boys.
Or random stop signs at four-way stops in various cities across California.
So your friends really support you when they give you a hard time about something. So having your face plastered on a shirt, and oddly enough, that weekend we left, and I started getting DMs of people wanting this shirt. So I'm actually going to be doing a pre-order.
I love it.
And going to be doing a run of these shirts.
I'll take one.
And then I got some other shirt ideas coming out. So it's just some funny stuff, some play on stuff, just, ideas like, why not? Right. It's funny. I want to do it. So
you got a lot of great stuff going here, man. I mean, I want to thank you for coming down and taking time out, particularly where you are in life with all the things that are going on. I know you have a qual coming up. There's some testing coming up for you and all that stuff that you're training for.
Annual PT test. I'm kind of stressed about it because the wedding, I try to get some hotel workouts, and I even worked out the day of the wedding.
Good.
I was worried.
That's what you do.
Well, man. I told her you got to have a good pump, right? For the photos, right?
It's the pre-party pump.
I say that as I'm a skinny dude. Everyone's looking at the thing going, that dude's skinny. Well,
look, man, the passion that you have, the energy that you bring, I mean, it makes it fun. And I appreciate you coming down and spending time with me and taking time out. Thanks to the lovely wife over there. Thanks for hanging out with us.
My number one fan.
Yeah, the number one fan. People know where they can find you. I hope they follow you and they hope they take advantage. And I cannot wait to see kind of what you do on top of all the other things you do for us as a community, but also as an officer on the streets in your local community. But what you're doing with the training and looking to train civilians, I think we need more of it. And
appreciate
it's good to see people stepping in. So thanks again for your time, brother.
No, thank you. And before we go,
I got
to shout out. I tried this Jocko Go, and I've never had one, and they're delicious. So where can we even pick these up,
dude? So we've got him here at the shop now, and he's all over the place. Like mostly, I think on East Coast. And
I saw on his Instagram, like it's what is it, Beavers or whatever, like that gas station or something. Man, they're only on the East Coast.
It's like I think he's making his way across the nation. But you can order them. I know you can get them, and we've been carrying them here, and people really love our trainers. Our trainers are down in these things. So,
well, cool. Thank you for showing me this, and shout out to Jocko Fuel for that.
You got it, man. Thanks again.
Thank you.